Hi, people out there. Moreno Ravenberg here. This is another live stream, also uh, a live stream that was unscheduled and whatnot. I just felt like live streaming. I just woke up 15 minutes ago, or 20 minutes at most. So yeah, we are good to go again for live stream number 8. These are spontaneous live streams to keep in mind. Ah, I'm just logging into thingy. I'm just logging in on the actual platform. So my apologies for you hearing my own voice just now, so that I can see the chat bar and all of that. Okay, so again, welcome people, welcome everyone. And for those of you that are about to join or are about to log in, I in this live stream I'll be discussing the misery that an occultist must endure, or better said, the miserable life of an occultist, as myself, with myself as an example. I don't know if I should wait for people to join the stream or if I should just go ahead and then just leave people like that. So yeah, my apologies. Yeah, in any case. No, I'm just gonna dive in right away. I'm not gonna wait until enough people come online and so on. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna begin. Okay, unfortunately, but again, everything happens for a reason. The majority, the absolute majority, if as far as I know, practically every occultist and or person that has an interest in the occult has either gone through more than his sort of her fair share of pain and misery or is still going through it. Fact of the matter is that the majority of people, at the very least, the majority of people that have an interest in the occult doesn't even have to be actively practicing occultists. These people aren't the most successful of people. These people aren't also the most competent of people. Bluntly put, occultists, generally speaking, are losers. People that have an interest in the occult, or you name it, are pretty much the exact opposite of what you ever would like to become in terms of quality of life. These people are worthless losers, circus freaks. They're they're everything that you don't want to be, and that the average person does not want to be, mundanely speaking. Okay, the majority of them spend their lives in pain and misery. You name it, every imaginable thing that you can think of. They either suffer from a range of mundane mental disorders, mundane to moderate or minor to moderate mental disorders, psychological disorders. They're broke, okay, ridiculously broke. We're talking about poor as fuck. It just keeps going on and on and on. Okay, occult experience is logged on. Hi, Moreno. Glad to see you again so soon. Jason Dunn is also with us. Hello to the both of you. I need to stop typing hi in the sidebar. Hi, hi, hi. I've typed hi 3 times. I typed in hi 3 times. Yeah. So in any case, the general person that has an interest in the occult is or has at some point for a good portion of his life been broke. Okay, we're talking about and has lived a life nothing but pain and misery, a life of nothing but hardship, of nothing but trials, adversity. And again, people that have an interest in the occult, all you have to do is look at the global occult community. I've done a video on this in the past called the occult world, and these people aren't exactly on forget successful. These people, a lot of them aren't even normal. What you would say, a normal person. There is something wrong with practically every one of them. Aside from the fact that the majority of them is ridiculously broke in the sense of struggling to get by financially, they also, like I said, have mental issues. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Under the right circumstances, could happen to anyone. But they suffer from a range of psychological disorders, and they're not helping themselves. It just keeps going on. Life is trial and adversary for them. They work dead-end jobs, jobs for which you have no expansive, for which there are no expansive opportunities, jobs that don't, where you don't have a future career-wise, where you can't even build a career. You have nothing, okay? Where they have nothing, and it just keeps going on and on and on. These people are miserable out and out. These people are honestly occultists, generally speaking, or people that have an interest in the occult, or parasites. These are people that form the lowest classes of society. And when I say class, I'm not referring to money specifically. I'm referring to the lowest classes in terms of quality of life. They have no quality of life whatsoever. Nothing. Zip. Nada. Okay, life for them is just the daily grind and just struggling left and right to get by, financially as well as otherwise. They have problems wherever you look. They either have problems domestically, so problems at home. They have problems on the working place. It just keeps going on. Okay, and for me, it has been no different. But the difference is, okay, between me and those people, quote unquote people. Point one, I'm not a parasite, obviously not. Point two, I actively, after becoming self aware, work towards betterment. And for me, it was do or die, literally. It was either get better or die trying to do so. But the worst part is that the majority of these occultists, these so called occultists and wannabe occultists, and people that have an interest in the occult, these people are just, the worst part is that they don't want to help themselves. And again, if you're seeing someone live in misery and that person does not want to help himself, okay, it's like the junkie or the alcoholic that refuses any kind of treatment, even if it's offered to him for free, and that is literally unwilling to make changes in his own life or to his own life. I mean, what would you say to someone like that? You'd say, no, drown in the pool of your own fucking misery. I'm done with you. That's what you'd say, and yeah, I that's what you'd say, and I agree with that completely. Okay, because that's what I would do. Nah, okay, I'm not gonna help someone that isn't willing to or does not even want to help it himself. So no, absolutely, positively not. So bluntly put, you can go fuck yourself if that's what I'd say to you. Drown in the pool of your own misery. In my own personal life, it has been, long story short, if I really need to summarize my own trials and adversaries short, is that of course all of it was like all of us, life and so on. Like I said, there's no free will, so it's all predestined, right? All of it is predestined. But in my own personal life, when it comes to trials and adversaries and so on, everything I could actually see the trials and adversity in my birth chart, in my own natal chart, astrologically speaking. My own natal chart clearly says that I will face many trials, many adversities, and much misery in the beginning part of my life, but that I'll reap the reward from all of those experiences later on. And I find myself in that junction, or at that junction right now. I find myself I find myself there, being there. So yeah, the pain and misery is behind me, but it wasn't too long ago. Okay, it wasn't. I think it was. It's been 5 years ago, approximately, that I still find myself in deep shit. And I'm simply going to elaborate on that. Okay, I'm using myself as an example because even by occult standards, or by the standards of occultists and people that have an interest in the occult, yeah, I have been through hell and back multiple times. Um, but in my case, all of it was caused by occult forces. All of it was caused by spirits and all of that. That's the primary reason for the misery in my life. So yeah, for me, yeah, how do I put it? Where does life begin? Life began for me here in Suriname, of course. I live with my parents, obviously. My father was David B says hi. Hey, David B. Again, for the people that are logging on, this live stream is about pain and misery and the trials and adversaries that people that have an interest in the occult, generally speaking, have. I'm discussing the fact that the occult world is one which is filled with pain and misery, and that occultists are pretty much vermin, more or less, and parasites, and their lives are filled with pain and suffering. And I've just discussed that in general, and now I'm going to discuss my own personal life, putting myself on the spot as an example. Not that that's an issue for me. Yeah, in any case, like I said, to shortly summarize, the pain and misery in my life, even by the cult standards, is horrifying. And I am, relatively speaking, only 33 years old. I turned 34 in September. Uh, so in 2 months. And yeah, specifically, I'm talking about my own life now, how my life began for me, how life began for me. My father was a black man and my mother a Hindu. So I'm of a mixed race on paper. I grew up in a suburban neighborhood just outside the city. Um, and yeah, I have a half sister, not really my sister, but yeah, I have a half sister. My mother basically had that one before she was with my father. She had my half sister before she was with my father, and she is completely Indian. So she's completely Hindu. She's not mixed race like me. Um, and yeah, life just for me, life was just mundane aside from the usual stuff, just going to school and work. Yeah, the pain and misery began in my beginning years. Okay, my mother herself and her family consists of a good deal of my mother and her family as a whole, to be honest. So basically every woman on her side consists, or they are pagan witches. Let me just put it like that. When I say pagan witches, I'm referring to, when I say witches, I'm referring to not the type that the stereotypical Western type that we're used to, the type that dances around the campfire naked while reciting this and that, or Wicca or witchcraft. No, 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 no. I'm referring to, I'm simply referring to the type that they actively practice black magic and whatnot at, let's just say, at an intermediate level, but more from a hereditary perspective. So they pass their knowledge on between themselves, and they keep things to memory more in a primitive way, because they themselves are primitive. So you can imagine, for me, life immediately began as one huge setback with a mother like that pretty much hates men. And as a man myself, she did everything in her power to undermine me. She did everything in her power to literally make my life a hell. And yeah, and for me, being as fragile as I was, of course, I was born at such a stage in my life, the beginning stage of my life. I actually depend on my parents for guidance, and instead of that, I was, metaphorically speaking, spat upon and whatnot. I do need, before I continue, I do need to point out to people, listen, most people watching this, we're all occultists here, so do not misconstrue this as dirty laundry or anything like that, because it's not like that at all. That's the reason for why I have no problem discussing this. If this was anything coming close to dirty laundry, then I would be the last person that would open his mouth, because I know especially what people can be like when it comes to stuff like this. So the last thing that I do is share intimate details with people. But this has nothing to do with that. Like I said, this is literally statistical. From a certain perspective, this is statistical. Okay, another occultist out there has the same shit story, and it just goes on. In any case, moving on. Yeah, in any case, moving on. David B, I'm assuming you know what I mean by dirty laundry. Dirty laundry, I simply mean that negative family events that can make people uncomfortable. That's what I mean by dirty laundry. And my message is don't be, okay? I'm assuming that every person watching this is an occultist, even if you're not practicing at the very least armchair or you have an interest in the occult. So something like this should not come as a surprise. Um, that's all I'm saying. In any case, moving on. Yeah, so my mother pretty much, instead of guidance, my mother made my life a living hell, to be honest. I was treated horrendously bad, you name it, from primitively. Back in the day, I was born in 85, 1985, from being beaten with a stick, you name it. Back in the day, physical punishment did exist. And at school too, you name it. Teachers would hit you with a ruler, but my mother just pretty much manhandled me and beat me with a stick just if I the second I didn't get something right, or the second I didn't do my homework, or I didn't even do it correctly. I was drilled to be the perfect student, if you will, to get nothing but good grades, and if not, then boom, lashes, if you will, metaphorically speaking, lashes. And yeah, and you can imagine how that messed me up, how that fucked me up, or how what effect that had on me psychologically, especially on the schoolyard. And yeah, that's the way it was. Okay, um, I I regularly did things up until I was 10 or 11. I did things like wet the bed because of that kind of because of all of that psychological damage that I had sustained. I literally wet. I mean, the average child wets the bed or stops wetting the bed at 6 years old or something, 5 years old. In any case, I wet the bed until I was 10. I was good and well in the elementary school, and the consensus amongst my so-called peers, amongst the other students, was that I was a sissy, I was a bitch, I was this, I was that, I was made out to be a wimp, and it just goes on and on and on. And well, I'm bringing old memories. Jason Dunn says I'm bringing old memories back and feeling slightly angry because I can relate. Well, yeah, yeah. At a certain point, yeah, yes. Because this is the first time. Okay, again, this is for me. Right now, I'm completely calm and cool. You should have seen me the first time I brought back all of these memories. I was raging and fuming and shit. But yeah, it doesn't matter. For me, I do feel a bit warm now, but I'm just talking about it. So I'm assuming, yeah, you're basically right. Feeling slightly angry. That is anger in the back of my head, that I'm in the back of my spine, that I'm sensing. Yeah. In any case, yeah. After that, I went to high school. High schools in Suriname are divided into junior and senior high school, so they're not combined the way they usually are in Western countries. Um, so you can't say, "Hey, I'm a junior, I'm a senior, I'm a freshman." No, 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 no. You just have junior high school consisting of 3 to 4 years, and then you have, I mean, to 4 years generally speaking, and then you have senior high school, which consists also of 3 to 4 years, and they're separate buildings. You go to junior high school first, and then you go to senior high school, unless you want to drop out. Rosalie Grandbaby has just joined us. Hello, Rosalie Grandbaby. Long story short, we're discussing we're discussing the fact that occultists, generally speaking, lead lives of pain and misery, and that people have an interest in the occult, their lives are filled with pain and suffering, and so on. And I am talking about my own personal life right now, just as an update, because it was no different for me. It was even worse for me, to be honest, in terms of severity. But I'll get to all of that as a conclusion. In any case, I went to high school, junior high school, and yeah, things were normal because I managed to hide that side from myself for the first 2 years. My high school, the junior high school that I went to consisted of 3 years, 3 terms. Sorry, so 3 classes. Everything went well. The Hold on for a second. No, well, no, yeah, it consisted of 3 classes. The first year, I managed to hide that part of myself, so everything went fine. Okay. When I say my parents, I don't need to point out that my parents were ridiculously strict. So there was no partying for me. Not that there are parties here or anything like that, but let's just say I wasn't allowed to do anything fun, pretty much. Nothing fun. Nothing at all. Nothing. Um, so no going to play with classmates after school or any of that crap. No, 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 no. Unless it was heavily supervised or restricted by mommy herself. So yeah, and in my second year, I in my second year I was bullied immensely. I was just humiliated, to be honest. I was bullied, and the reason I was bullied is that I simply is that that side of me came out. At this stage, I also need to point out that. But that wasn't the only thing playing a role. The house that I grew up in, aside from my quote unquote family, and specifically my quote unquote mother, the house that I grew up in, it was a rental house and it was not a pretty house. I'm going to tell you right now, okay? The neighborhood I lived in more or less was ghettoish. It wasn't specifically a ghetto, but it was ghettoish. And the house I grew up in was not a good looking house. The house was dilapidated, it was run down. It was a broken home, okay, literally a broken home. And the reason for that, too, one of the reasons for that is that the house that I grew up in was haunted. And when I say haunted, I mean ridiculously haunted. Aside from that, the landlord had sold the house to someone else, and we didn't have anywhere else to go. So obviously, my mother and father took a firm stance. My mother was the head of the household. My father she had my father completely whipped, the same way that I fell under her spell, if you will. And all she did was bark orders at my father, and he did it. My father was just a total wimp. But again, she cast a spell over my father in order to chain him to her, as a matter of fact. Okay, and this is quite common here. It's just a basic witchcraftian spell, which puts men under the spell of women. It's known across the globe, okay, but it has different names and what's not and what not. It's a basic spell. To be honest, especially at my level, it's a basic witchcraftian spell that I can easily break. To be honest, if someone's under such a spell. But the thing about the spell is that it is a heavy duty spell, not heavy in severity, but the result is simply that a man completely becomes weak mentally and psychologically, and he turns into a slave of whomever enslaves him astrally. And that's what my mother did to my father. So he was completely weak and a wimp too. He was completely mentally out of it. He was like a zombie. He just adhered to her wishes. If she said jump, it was all about how high. Yeah. So again, as you can see, the in such a growing up in such a toxic environment, I honestly didn't stand a chance. And aside from that, the spirits that were haunting the house that I lived in also really tried to do a number on me, or did a number on me, by just making my life a hell, by throwing negative energy at me and everything. Okay, I regularly encounter things like, for example, if I watch TV alone at night, at 2 a.m. in the morning, I could clearly feel people around me, to the point where I couldn't even watch TV in peace. I was literally like this. Mm, mm. Because you can sense it when you're in a room. You can sense it. Okay, as at the very least, people that generally speaking have basic clairvoyant levels, they can sense they can sense that they're not alone. And it's the same thing for me. I can clearly feel that that I'm not alone. And better yet, I could sense that there was someone sitting, for example, in that corner, but I just couldn't see that person physically. But I know that someone's sitting there. And yeah, it just goes on. And yeah, in any case, at that rate, I was. At that time, I was in second junior high, second class, the class before the last one. And that's when all of that negativity, all of that negative energy kicked in. And as a result, I was bullied tremendously and humiliated. And of course, I was unable to fight back. I mean, worse yet, I literally can barely remember that time. The only reason I remember that time is because I forced myself to the same way the same way a hypnotherapist or a therapist forces someone to bring up bad memories. For example, when someone's raped, they bring up these bad memories by force, if need be, via hypnotherapy, by hypnotizing someone. So I really in order to process all of this stuff, before I became a magician, I focused, let's just say around and when I was in my 20s, I forced myself to bring back all of these bad memories. And again, it just fills you with the same shit that it would fill anyone with: anger, hatred, rage. We're talking about ridiculous rage, okay? Almost wanting to break everything you see inside. It just goes on. And yeah, the negative energy, all of that negative all of that negative energy put together, all of that negative astral energy, all of that black magic just crippled me mentally to the point where I couldn't fight back. I looked horrendously. My breath smelled bad. I mean, these spirits just saw to it that my hygiene level was bad. I smelled. I mean, I really looked bad. Okay, my hair was untrimmed. I looked like pretty much a beggar. I had acne all over my face. I looked like a fucking geek, honestly. The only thing I was missing were a pair of braces. I just look horrendously bad. I look like shit, literally. And needless to say, that didn't help me. Um, I just I just spent I just spent that year, aside from being bullied. From that moment on, I just spent it like a zombie at school. To be honest, I was completely like this. I could barely even move, you name it. I was completely paralyzed and crippled astrally. And the same thing happened more or less in my final year, because I still managed to pass only by a whisker. And I mean, everyone, including teachers, okay, everyone just took stock of the bad condition I found myself in, and the bullying and everything. And it was not just about bullying, it was about people taking advantage of the weakened state that I was in. I mean, what do you expect? The country I live in is already a shithole, so the vermin will try to take advantage of you every turn. Well, worthless beyond measure. So yeah, it just goes on. And the same thing happened in my last year, the third class I was in junior high. And the worthless wannabes and parasites took advantage of my weakened state. They tried to humiliate me. They tried to dig their nose in my life, to stick their nose in my lives, and in my life. It just goes on. And after that, I still managed to pass. I went to senior high school. That's where senior high began. The same thing happened there, but senior high was not. The junior high school that I went to was kind of an elitist high school. I went to children of basically high class individuals, or high society, if you will. We're talking about children of company owners, of bankers, and for me being the opposite, it was just it was not fun. Okay, I that did not help or contribute to the cause. Whereas the senior high school I went to was kind of also a ghettoish high school. Nothing but crap that visited that school, and it was the same thing for me. I That senior high school consisted of 4 classes, I think, two or something. In any case, the same thing happened. Particularly women taking advantage of me in my weakened state. It's a throwback to my domestic situation and everything. They literally took advantage of me the same way that my mother did, since I was under such a spell. And yeah, it at that time I became more self-aware. I became more self-aware of my life as a whole, and I actively started resisting, and that literally caused extreme outbursts at home. We're talking about, I mean, we're talking about all hell breaking loose at home, domestically speaking, in the form of spats and fights. I would regularly just yell at my family members. I would literally just bite their heads off, and I. I mean, I carried the most hatred I carried was for my mother, obviously. I mean, the things that I told her, you know, I literally just told her things like, I yelled at her, "You're fucking worthless. You don't deserve to live. Honestly, you ruined my life. You piece of shit." Blah, 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 blah. And it caused a bunch of crying and a bunch of stuff and this and that and that and that, because my mother she couldn't deny it, so she felt humiliated too, and all of that crap. Okay. Um, I mean, at that stage, you should imagine. Okay, people here barely even know what a computer is. So yeah, especially the majority of people, especially living back in that time. Okay, in the 80s and the 90s, people that were born in the 60s or in the 50s or 30s, even 1930s, they were too stupid. They don't stick with the times, so they're not caught up on technology. And yeah, I talk down to them the same way I talk down to an enemy. These quote unquote people are legitimately my enemies, and my mother is my arch rival. So yeah, that's what high school looked like for me. And due to all the chaos, honestly, it was so bad because the negative energy that was thrown my way as a cause of those negative entities, those evil spirits that inhabited the house that I grew up in. I mean, you could even hear knocking on the ceiling. Uh, Especially, these are spirits, generally speaking, that haunt houses. They sow discord, and by sowing discord, I mean they cause disunity. They cause you to fight with family members. There is kind of like a suffocating air inside the house. Everything seems darkish because everything feels heavy. That's normal. For me as an occultist, I can tell you right now that that's normal. Most houses that are haunted, that's one of the basic traits that spirits have, or the basic abilities that they have. It doesn't matter what they are, whether they're dead people. It doesn't matter whether they're dead people or whether they're demons or infernal spirits. No, 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 no. It doesn't matter. Okay, they're capable of pitting people against each other, and that's also, so you can imagine. Aside from that, they just pitted everyone against each other. My mother and father would regularly fight to the point where they just spat all over each other. And yeah, the only thing holding together my parents is the fact that my mother had that spell over my father. That's the only thing that held them together. For the rest, my father himself, he was fed up with the situation and he wanted to divorce my mother and you name it, but he wasn't able to do so. He was too weak. And what's even worse is that my mother had his side of the family also under her control. Um, so yeah, that didn't help his cause. But to be fair, honestly, like I said, I don't care about my. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care about my father. I stay focused on my own well-being. And yeah, um, all of that reached the climax too when I was in senior high school. Because in my second year, I mean, the astral pain was so intense that I was literally completely paralyzed. I couldn't even read a book. I couldn't do anything. When I looked at a book, I didn't see anything. I was just staring in front of me lifelessly. And I had to be taken from school because I just couldn't study. I literally got nothing but F's. F, 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 F. Just a hint, just a heads up here. Um, the, um, the grades that you get in school are numerically based, so not alphabetically based. So instead of A's all the way to F's and whatnot, you have you get scores here from 1 to 10, and I got nothing but ones and twos on my report card. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blah, blah, blah. I couldn't even study nothing, honestly, and this also agitated teachers. This agitated teachers, okay, too, because they just sighed. Oh God, Ravenberg again, because they weren't able to again, the vermin here isn't able to comprehend the shit I found myself in. Of course, I got a bunch of reactions. I got pity on one side. I got anger on the other side. People simply express anger towards me based on all the black magic and all the energy. You name it. I also suffer from hereditary curses. Okay, all the stuff my mother did magic wise came back to me because I was a direct descendant. That's also one of the basic traits of curses. Okay, if someone, for example, if you cast a negative spell on someone, a black magic spell, it can come back to not only haunt you but also haunt your. It's a hereditary spell, thereby meaning that the negative energy seeps through to descendants, your offspring. And yeah, so again, I had more shit to deal with. As you can see at this point, I literally, if you were to give it a number, right, from on a ratio from 1 to 100, let's just say in terms of negative energy I had to deal with that was placed upon me, I the negative energy was literally off the charts. It would break any scale. I dealt with 200 to 300. I dealt with multiple evil entities tormenting me. I dealt with hereditary curses. I dealt with negative energy. I dealt with my family directly. So honestly, I should have been dead by all accounts, or at the very least, ended up in a nut house. But yeah, and it almost came to that. But I stayed strong through all of it. Um, and it. By the way, G Stacks 814, welcome. He's also online, saying people are demons in the flesh sometimes. Yeah. So I had to be taken from school, and let's just say a school was what a normal midterm, a term lasts a year. So I had to be taken off of school after 3 months. I had to be taken off of school after 3 months, and I just spent the remainder of the year at home. And I tried again the year after that, and it also didn't end up being anything because of the same reason. I was completely fucking paralyzed, and I dropped out of senior high school as a result. I never went to the university. I never went to college here. Nothing. But not that I regretted it. I tried one more under incredible pressure of my mother. I tried one more senior high school. I was transferred from my initial senior high school to another. At that point, I had literally been at senior high school 4 years, where the average student is only supposed to be there for 2 or 3 years. So I became somewhat of a park bench. And it didn't even work at that school for the same reasons, of course, the magic and all the shit and so on. And I just again, I just said, no, I'm gonna drop out because I didn't want to go to school anymore. Another reason too is that because he is so hopelessly, worthlessly corrupt, it doesn't matter how well educated you are, it doesn't matter how good your grades are or how good anything is. So I thought to myself, nah, continuing going to school, I made a rational decision. I just had an epiphany. I remember two guys sitting next to me, and I was literally like, I'm not gonna come to school anymore. This is a waste of time. It doesn't matter how well educated you are, you still end up working some dead end job or a job that you're overqualified for and that you're not being paid justifiably for. I'm not gonna come to school anymore. This is a waste of time. And those two guys just looked at me like, okay, you need to find a job then, something that suits you. And yeah, that's what I did. And that's what I did. And I, I, that's what I did. And that's when working began for me. My first job was at a local security company as a base operator. A base operator is similar to a 911 on-call operator. You know, instead of 911 is what's your emergency. You simply work in kind of like a closed, kind of like a giant cubicle, not a cubicle. Let's just say you work in a closed room, similar to a bedroom, but the one that doesn't even have windows. You name it. And you're simply supposed to, whenever customers call, you're supposed to help these customers with their needs, And if the alarm goes off at someone's house, you need to call them, because you have access. You just sit behind a computer. You work with software that most alarm companies use, or most security companies use, that have electronic alarms installed at people's houses. So you need to call them and say, hey, hello, miss, thing you went off in your bedroom. We're going to send out the surveillance team. We'll call you if there's anything, blah, blah, blah. That was my first official job. By that time, it was 2007, and I was, let me see, 2007, 1985 plus, I'm sorry, 2007 minus 1985, I was 22 years then. I was in my 20s, the beginning part of my 20s. And yeah, the company, like most other companies here, but especially that company, is a worthless sack of shit. The owner is similar to a slave driver. He's just like one of those colonial slave drivers, or he tries to act that way. He's just one of those numerous worthless wannabes that owns companies here and so on. And he doesn't really own it. His family built up the company, and the torch was simply passed to him, and he's gonna pass the same fucking torch on to his worthless vermin offspring, and it just goes on. Just a brief FYI, here in Suriname, this is basically what a worthless banana republic looks like. Okay, it's the case in most worthless third world countries that no one has ever heard of. The majority of companies here, most businesses that are set up here are businesses that are most businesses set up here are businesses that have been founded by someone, by someone light skinned like me, someone that is generally speaking not ethnic, so someone that's not really colored in terms of skin tone. It's someone of a light skin tone, um, and it's a family business. It's family owned, maintained, and operated, and they simply fight to the death in order to make the company advance as much as possible. And yeah, the torch is simply passed on from generation to generation. I've even heard stories of these families allegedly marrying their own cousins, so committing to incest just for the sake of maintaining said wealth within the family. They don't want to marry outside the family because they want they want the they want the wealth to maintain or to stay within family circles or family lines. And here in Suriname, a surprising amount of Lebanese people here. We're talking about people, Jews and Lebanese people, people from Lebanon whose family immigrated to Suriname um, decades ago. These people are most of the company owners. These families own most of the companies you'll find here, especially companies that that are primordial in nature, companies that started up as the first or as being the first and primary ones. So yeah, that's the kind of company I work for. For the rest, the company was an absolute piece of shit. I worked at that company for 4.5 years, from 2007 all the way until 2011. And the company was just worthless beyond measure. They blatantly broke safety restrictions, safety guidelines. There was nothing, in case, let's just say, if the building caught fire, we'd be literally trapped like rats as employees, because it didn't adhere to safety codes, safety regulations, nothing. Okay, believe me, nothing. It was honestly modern slavery. Honestly, I worked 12 hours a day sometimes, and imagine my income, 2007, right? Do you want to know how much money I make? Could just convert it into American dollars. I started off in 2007. Keep in mind, this was a full job, we're not talking about a temporary thing or a vacation job or something that a student does, not just some extra work, mowing the lawn or anything like that. No, 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 no. This was an actual job with benefits and everything. We're talking about medical benefits and so on. I made, I started with, hold on, let me see, converted. Um, I started off with $100 a month, 100 American dollars a month. That was my income. Even worse, okay. So of course, after 4.5 years, I literally got a raise of you're gonna get a kick out of this too. Laughably offensive. Ew, let me see. I got an annual raise of $13. So that $100 turned into what? $170 after 4 years. I made $170 in 2011. So yeah. Aside from that, yeah, things that you can, of course, the black magic and all the fucking negativity and all of that, of course, took its toll on my job there too. Okay. I had employees mistreating me, yelling at me because of the whole curse thing that I told you, and so on. And me, of course, not being able to defend myself because I'm astrally paralyzed. David B says if you were about to work there 20 to 30 years, maybe you'd make $200 to $300. Yeah, maybe. Again, the company doesn't regard its people as the company doesn't regard its employees as people. They regard them as vermin, and they are right, but I'm the exception. But of course, again, the company is beyond worthless. That's also why the company does its best to hide that specific department that I worked at. Again, the second you see a company that offers vacancies or help wanted signs, and it does so on a on a frequent or regular basis, the company does so, for example, and you're noticing that hey, this company keeps looking for people. They almost always have that help wanted sign every month or every 2 to 3 months. That's immediately a red flag. And here in work less than nothing shit stain Suriname, it's always the case. The second you see a company here looking for people consistently, then damn, that's bad news. That means that the working conditions and working circumstances are ridiculously abhorrent. Okay, they're revolting and disgusting and beyond measure and beyond worthless too. That's why they constantly look for people. And the company that I work for was literally just the cream of the crop, if you will. And yeah, I also had the same shit that I had to endure there. The same thing. The owner trying to yell at me, doing a bunch of things. Okay. Again, my other colleagues also had to endure the same thing because my other colleagues were actual vermin. They barely even knew what a computer was. They're even uglier than the average Surinamese person is. It just keeps going on. It just keeps going and going and going. Okay. And yeah, as a result, we'd fight like dogs regularly. We'd yell at each other. We'd literally treat each other like crap. And I was one of them. You can imagine at in my 20s, I became aware of everything, of all of the trials that I've gone through in my life and of all the negativity. And I was filled with resentment. We're talking about incredible resentment. That's one of the main, aside from the fact that Suriname just brings out the worst in me. Um, just actually living in Suriname the way that I did back then, um, I was filled with resentment, and resentment breeds anger and hostility. So as a result, I just yelled at every fucking person that wanted to ask me something. It was like this, hey, can you help me out with something? What do you want? What the fuck do you want from me? That's the reaction. That's basically what I acted like. And yeah, And yeah, people regularly, I even had customers sometimes ask me what the fuck my problem was, why do you keep yelling at me? Why do you keep doing this and that and so on? So yeah, it's safe to say that I wasn't exactly a pleasant person back then. It's safe to say that I wasn't a pleasant person back then. I'm gonna show you guys, back then there were no such thing as selfies and so on. I mean, cell phones even, a cell phone was a luxury back then, because worthless shit stain Suriname only had one telecommunications provider, and a SIM card back then used to cost at least $50, half of or a quarter of the average person's salary here. So you can imagine. Yeah, well beyond worthless. I'm just gonna show you guys. There were no selfies back then. The only picture I can show you guys is a picture of my ID card. Where is my ID card? I took my ID card in 2000. I had it renewed in 2010. And David B is asking me, how long did you live with your parents until you moved out? Just hold on. Just hold on for a second. Just hold on for a second. I'll get to all of that in a second. Just be patient. To give you an idea on what I look like, this is what I look like. Yeah, take a good look. Does that look like someone that's happy? You guys tell me, what do I look like? What did I look like back then? You can even see the date here, okay? The date is here, April 2010. That's when it was renewed. Honestly, tell me what I look like. You can see for yourself. Bluntly put, I look like shit. I literally look like shit back then. This was 2010, 9 years ago. Um, in any case, so yeah, in order to, I did everything back then in my power to help myself, of course. I started visiting a local spellcaster that worked with oils she imported. The way it worked is that you're supposed to place oils. I look like I was. The way that I'm sorry, the way those oils worked is that you were supposed to place them on your body, for example, one droplet here and there, and it would help you. And that's when things started becoming better for me. Aside from the fact that I actively resisted the horrendous circumstances I found myself in my entire life, uh, um, I I started working with that spellcaster actively, and basically my entire income went to that spellcaster. And I started becoming better mentally. My health started to, my astral, so my mental or astral as well as physical health started improving. I started feeling better. I slowly started to remove the negative energy that was plaguing me, all of the black magic and everything. But of course, this was a drop in the bucket, okay? But even at such a stage, a drop is welcome. Uh, and at that stage, I was 22 years old. For the people asking questions, again, be patient. I'll get to all of those questions. I'm sorry. For those of you that are listening patiently, the people that are commenting are briefly distracting me. So that's all. It's okay. I'll get to everything. So everything will become clear. Um, how long have I been streaming for? I've been streaming for under an hour. Okay, that's good. Um, so I was 22 at that age, and it just keeps going. And in a revolt, as a protest, I said to myself, "Hey, listen, my environment is toxic, so I need to get out of this environment." And I did something along the lines of running away from home. I I just sought out a rundown apartment to live in, a shithole apartment, and I just left. And of course, my mother wouldn't have any of it. Her, keeping me under my spell and all. One thing that she hates is to relinquish control or to lose control. So it turned out into some huge drama in which my family stalked me, and I went to the police for them. And of course, the vermin here, everyone was against me. They literally took their side. They took the side of my family instead of my side. They just me filing a police report against them, and the police officer was like, "Why the fuck are you filing a report against your own family? Your mother is the one that raised you, and now you're thanking her by filing a report against you." And again, this even pissed me off. This pissed me off even more. You know, and that spellcaster, gratefully as I was towards her, she was a woman, and she was the real deal. She wasn't a scammer or anything. She lived outside the city, and she did help me. Okay, she'd helped me a good deal, which and I thanked her for that. Um, and she told me, now the thing is, these people don't understand you. They don't understand the position you find yourself in. When they look at you, they automatically think to themselves, someone that, why does this kid want to hurt his family that badly? They're the ones that raised them. They're the ones that helped him out and all of that. And now this is how he repays them. So yeah. Um, Again, this was adding insult to injury. This was like literally throwing more oil onto an already burning flame, which was my personality and the shit that I had to deal with, all the trials and the adversity. So I was 22 at this stage, and it turned into a huge drama again, where I stayed at a certain place for a month or two, and my mother got the landlord as well as the police to evict me, and thereby forcing me to come back home. At such a stage, I felt defeated. Honestly, I felt defeated. Literally just felt defeated. And I also need to mention that for that the negativity with the spiritual hauntings in that house had gotten so bad to the point where I had 5 or 6 spirits driving me to suicide. And I tried to commit suicide on multiple occasions. I tried swallowing rat poison. I tried eating a loaf of bread that was entirely laced with painkillers, just caused me to vomit violently. And while my mother was yelling at me and calling me insane, you're insane. What kind of person does that? No normal person does that. What else? Those spirits also caused me to drift all the way onto someone's property, similar to when you're drunk. And the guy saw me as a criminal and started beating me up and was on the verge of shooting me. And he called the police on me, corrupt police, of course, which also saw me as insane. And they simply brought me back home. Yeah. So this happened before what I told you, before I ran away. This happened in the years, let's just say this happened between 19 and 22 years. Where I'm at now, story wise, is 22 years where I am back home. At that stage, my parents had moved to another location. They had moved somewhere else. They had moved to a different neighborhood in a house that looked better. Um, and again, I was more of like a prisoner. Okay, for my mother, it was all about control. She needed to keep everyone in control. She saw herself basically as the warden, and everyone is her prisoner that needs to stay a prisoner. And the one thing that she hated was relinquishing control. And I'm not gonna lie. At a certain point back when I when we had a huge fight, and I told her, "You're a worthless piece of crap. You ruined my life." I literally just wanted to beat the shit out of her, enraged and all. And I told her, if I fucking hit you, I'll knock out of those worthless teeth that you have, the 1 or 2 teeth that you have in your mouth, because she lost a good deal of her teeth. So I think when she was 50 years old, she started putting in porcelain teeth or something, porcelain fillings. She had artificial teeth in any case, the kind that old people had. And yeah, of course, she started crying and so on. On several occasions, my father also wanted to hit her because he just couldn't take the pressure that she exerted on him. And all she would do is cry and blah blah blah. Yeah, and yeah, and at such a stage, and I need to point out too that all of my mother's family supported her. You know, not just my father's family. My mother's family, they were also witches. So yeah, um, they were also witches. And how should I put this? My half sister was also a very witchy, hoary type. You know, she was the kind of cheap third world slut that you see pimping herself out for $1, and wants to be popular with the whole wannabe bullshit thing and everything like that. You know what I'm talking about, or what I'm talking about. And my sister is just like my mother. Okay, it's literally like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Just revolting. My mother's entire family is revolting. Through hereditary magic, or to their own style of folk magic, they've seen to it that only women are born in the family, and that woman is automatically introduced into the coven, if you will. It's like a primitive coven that they have going on, because my entire mother's family, not one man is present. She only had one brother out of the 10 or 20 children that her mother had, and that brother left for living abroad. He lives in the Netherlands now, but there's no escaping the negativity. He also lives a life of pain and misery and suffering. He's just one of those worthless asswipe Indians. And my mother's family is comprised of largely of women that have been introduced in the covenant. They're all of them are practically proficient in witchcraft, more or less. So yeah, it goes without saying too that I despise both sides of my family because both sides are worthless beyond measure. Um, yeah. When I was forced to move back home, I was simply locked in a room, and I was only permitted or allowed to go outside when absolutely necessary. When I had to go to work, or when I had to do something else, I had to run an errand, or you name it. I just I just felt defeated to the point where I wanted nothing more to die than to die, and that's also what I look like. I look like the same person that I look like in that picture. I look like shit, and I just felt defeated. I just wanted to die. I'll call that same spellcaster, and I asked her whether it's possible to commit suicide via magic, and of course she gave me an answer that she gave me an answer that. She gave me an answer that is a nonsensical answer, a miscellaneous answer. Oh, something along the lines of it being possible, blah blah blah, but it being too difficult, and so on and so on, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I slowly started recovering, and I let go of the idea of suicide, and I just continued to battle on and fight back and so on. And and I had I'm sorry. Victor G is saying you didn't look bad in a picture, just very intense, possible from your lifestyle back then. Seriously. Again, for people that are of this opinion, okay, I look like shit, period. No, not I didn't look bad. I look horrendously bad. I didn't even look like a human being. I'm gonna show you guys, okay? Listen, look at the difference. Look at me. Hold on, I need to check to see if I am showing you this correctly by looking at my own webcam. Look at me here. Okay, this is me 2010. And look at me here. Look at the difference. You tell me, what difference do you see? That's my point. That's the point that I'm making. Uh, yeah. In any case, yeah, that was just a sideline. Okay, believe me, people have told me all kinds of stuff. People told me, God, you look so ugly back then. Yeah, Jason Dunn is saying a huge difference. Yes, obviously. Okay, I have a close friend that obviously told me, yeah, that's a huge difference. You look dilapidated back then. I mean, you looked like you look like I had a Canadian friend once, a customer that also became a friend. We're not friends anymore, but years ago, and he told me, you look like he told me you look like you're under a good deal. You look like you're under an intense amount of pressure. You look like there is an immense amount of pressure being exerted upon you, which was literally the case. But yeah, that's why he's also an occultist, even if he's a novice or similar. In any case, moving on. At that point, I visited several spellcasters, and I uh, I had gotten to the point where I had accumulated enough energy to the point where I managed to live on my own. Uh, and and even again, my parents even were sparing no expense because they became aware of my occult traits. They became aware of the fact that I was seeing spellcasters to combat them. My mother specifically, again at the helm. My mother in the lead, taking the lead. And they themselves visited spellcasters in their turn, so it literally turned into a magical war. But I prevailed. I had gained enough energy to the point where I could sense that, hey, I have enough energy to deal with this, to face my mother. And I just told her, listen, I'm going to live on my own. This was around 2010, 2011. Around the same time that I took that picture, I told her, listen, I'm moving out of the house. I'm leaving. I'm not coming back ever. Okay, I'm going to live on my own. want nothing to do with you guys. You guys are dead to me, literally dead to me. I could not care less if I tried. You guys could drop dead today, tomorrow, including you, and I could not give less of a shit if I tried. Let alone two shits. I literally don't give a rat's ass. And I just left. And of course, again, I had magic. My energy level, magically speaking or astrally speaking, was higher. So she couldn't say anything or do anything. She just started crying because she lost control. So she felt humiliated, and she started crying a lot and all of that. And that's when I left my elderly home, and I've never seen my family since that time. I cut ties with them right then and there. They shared it with the rest of the family, my mother's side as well as my father's side. But I still ended up getting harassed by them 2 to 3 years after I left that house. So all the way up until 2014, because they literally went high and low. They undertook every measure possibly to undermine me by using magic. And for me, it was a ridiculous struggle. Okay, you can imagine what it's like living by yourself on such a salary. Um, Regarding cost of living wise, in order to rent, I moved to a small room um, that is literally like a prison cell, or even worse than a prison cell. I lived in a small room for half a year. That's where I moved to, and that room is a meter and a half, 1.5 square meters. That was the size of that room. So literally, kind of like a bathroom, if you will, a small bathroom. And I didn't have any furniture in it or anything. I just had a cheap mattress I laid on. And I resorted to extreme measures in order to save up as much money as possible. This was a deliberate decision. Okay, I could not have done it, but I still chose to do so, because again, I'm an extremist myself. I can be ridiculously extreme, and believe it or not, I started myself on a heavy diet of bread and water. For 5 months, I ate nothing but bread and water. That was food for me. I just ate 2 loaves of bread a day with peanut butter, and I drank tap water. That was it. The place was a rundown ghetto apartment complex. It wasn't even an apartment complex. It was just owned by an Indian woman that rented out rooms, and the place was ridiculously unhygienic. Of course, cockroaches running left and right. You name it. I actually had to place duct tape under all the crevices under my rooms, under the doors and whatnot, in order to prevent cockroaches from crawling all over me while I was, for example, sleeping and so on. And I managed to save up enough money, and then I moved to a better place. I moved to another nearby apartment complex that looked better. That was an actual apartment. It was a one-bedroom apartment, and for that room that I told you guys about, that prison-like room, I I paid how much? I paid $40, 40 American dollars. See what I mean? It's still almost half of my salary back then. I made like what, $140, and I paid $40 rent. When I moved into an actual apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, when I moved into a one-bedroom apartment, we were in 2011 by that time. I I I paid how much? I paid $100 rent. Again, keep in mind, I made $140, and the rent for my one-bedroom apartment was $100. So I had $40 to live off of, 40 American dollars, to buy food and cover other household expenses. So yeah, needless to say, when I lived in that one-bedroom apartment, things got tough financially. I struggled to get by immensely. I mean, really, to the point where there were times when I literally just I had to go a day or two. Well, I'm sorry, a day or two. I had to go a week without food, or I had to resort to eating only dry rice. just because I didn't have any other money or anything like that. Uh, I was so broke that I couldn't even afford to take a bus. I had to walk everywhere. And at that point, I'd gotten so used to walking everywhere that I just walked miles. I was able to walk back then. I was able to walk 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers with ease. I'm not going to lie. I can walk all the way from town to town without any effort because of my dilapidated state of mind. Um, and yeah, that was 2011. I left that company, that worthless shithole company. I went to work for another competiting company that was almost just as worthless, pretty much, yeah, just as worthless. The other employees shunned me at that company because they couldn't stand the fact that I made more money than them, and I was more developed than them. I was developed, they weren't. Again, they barely know what a computer is. I know what a computer is and more. And at that stage, it was what, 2012, and that was 7 years ago. I was 25, 26 back then, and I was still I was still miserable, okay, because I still suffered from black magic, negative energy, hereditary curses, and all of those things. But I wasn't in that toxic environment anymore. In any case. So, but again, I was still magically harassed by my family, which couldn't stand the fact that that I wasn't under their control anymore, specifically my mother. Um, and yeah, I just kept going, and I worked at that second. It was also a security company. I made more money. They because of my work experience, they upped my salary from $140 on to $240. So I made $100 more. And yeah, I also forgot to mention that in between, I briefly worked outside the city for a Dutch mining company, but that didn't amount to anything. It was like being in prison. I was surrounded by guys that didn't even have an elementary school diploma, and I had only worked there for a month. So safe to say the place was well beyond worthless. Nothing but misery, nothing but accumulated misery. And in any case, yeah, that second security company was my second official job. I worked there for, I think, 3.5 years, roughly estimated. The first half year, I worked for the first half year as a base operator too, doing the same thing. But I got into a huge fight with my worthlessly, hopelessly corrupt, greedy, my greedy department head, and the company wanted to let me go, but I became public enemy number one for them because I went to the labor department and I really got on their case with the labor department. I took things judicially and I made their lives hell, and they despised me for it. And as a result, they wanted to fire me, but the labor department prevented them from firing me, and they sent me to a department that no one wants to work at, which is simply the outdoor security department. And that's when I was officially a security guard. I worked as a security guard for 3.5 years, and my first station that I was supposed to guard was a heavy equipment. Was a company that repairs heavy equipment, heavy machinery. We're talking about they repair tractors, big buses, and so on. Similar to a car graveyard. That's what the place looked like. The place was disgusting. Okay, it was owned by a Dutch guy, and it was also most of the employees that worked at that company were welders and guys that work with heavy equipment and heavy machinery, generally speaking. So the ground was covered in soot and motor oil. So yeah, you can imagine too that was my first station. I worked there during the day from 4 p.m. till 11 p.m. in the evening, and from 11 p.m. in the evening till 7 a.m. in the morning. And the neighborhood that it's situated or located in is pretty much one of the worst neighborhoods in town. And guess what happened? One evening when I I'm sorry, someone is calling me right now and I can't pick up the phone. Someone's calling me right now and I need to tell that person that I can't pick up. What sort of stuff? Hold on, hold on. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Um, yeah, where was I? Yeah. One evening, what happened is that I'm sorry, hold on for a second. Let me check to see if there's anyone out in front. No, there's no one out in front. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry for the distractions. It's through no fault of my own. In any case, yeah. What happened on an evening is that the three guys living nearby, from the ghetto, obviously, they tried to rob the place. That's what happened. I was hogtied. I was hogtied. I was hit over the head with, I think, either the butt of a gun or something similar. And yeah, I had to go to the emergency room and get stitches and so on. And yeah, that was my first station, and yet it immediately spelled bad news. And I just worked as a security guard, generally speaking. Again, everything was worthless. Working circumstances, working conditions, everything was worthless, 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 worthless. Working as a security guard, it's almost like you're some stray dog or some stray animal. Sometimes they place you at stations that don't even have anything, that doesn't even have. They place you at a station that doesn't even have a guardhouse or anything like that. And and I I should and yeah, that's what I worked like for 3.5 years. And this is where the story of occultism begins for me. Around that same time that I worked as a security guard, I started getting an interest in occultism. I need to point out that by that time, I still experience a good deal of things. I experience hauntings even at work because of my character trait. Like I said, I have the character trait that sees to it that malevolent entities are automatically drawn towards me, or entities that want to cause me harm and similar. And again, I even experienced this on the job. Okay, when working the graveyard shift, I like working at nighttime. I'm a night person. I don't really like straining myself during the day. I really despise doing so. So yeah, I'm more active at night, and hence me choosing to work at night. And I regularly encountered these kind of spirits on a security location. For example, a location that I was supposed to guard or similar. Um, a location that I was supposed to guard or similar. And and that's where the story of occultism begins for me. Okay, I started off also, I'm not gonna lie, as a wannabe occultist. Just like all the others, I was just fascinated by the left hand path, and I first came into contact with it when I was at a Facebook group. I was online in a Facebook group, a traditional golden or an Order of the Golden Dawn Facebook group. And I asked a bunch of questions, and people found me interesting. I wasn't boring like the others. I asked a bunch of questions and whatnot. Um, Hold on for a second, a brief moment. The landlord of the house that I live in is calling me, and he's not replying to my text messages. So you'll forgive me if I briefly call him and ask him what the hell he wants. Exactly. I know what it is in relation to, but hold on for a brief second, people. Let's see if he picks up. Hallo? Ja, 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 Marco, meneer Marco. Ik neem aan dat u de sms hebt gezien die ik voor u heb gestuurd, toch? Oké, nee, ik wou even die contactgegevens van die mensen. U weet die mensen die u vorige keer had gestuurd, die licht hadden geïnstalleerd, toch? Ja, dus die gegevens wou ik gewoon van. Zo, wat is het naam van het bedrijf en een telefoonnummer? Ja, neemt u het voor me op, de sms stuurt gewoon voor me, goed? Nee, nee, het is nu een ander probleem met die lamp in de woonkamer. Dus ik moet even kijken wat ik daaraan ga doen, want die zijn ook helemaal losgekomen. Nee, dat weet ik. Ik ga ze gewoon vragen hoeveel het kost en zo. Oké, is goed. Oké, ja. Ja, ja, ja. Yeah, sorry, people. Okay, yeah, now I'm back in any case. That was just my landlord. I had to call him in regards to some housework that needs to be done, electrical housework that needs to be fixed. And I simply asked him for the contact details to a company and so on. FYI, that was me speaking Dutch just now. Okay, the language that I just spoke was Dutch. I speak Dutch. Ik spreek Nederlands because it's the official language here. That's the only reason I'm able to speak Dutch. That I'm fluent in Dutch. Yeah. In any case, getting back to the story, I was in that Golden Dawn group and on Facebook, and people found me interesting because I was different. I wasn't boring like the average person in that group. I wasn't the stereotypical. I wasn't a Golden Dawner. So people also noticed that my interest was specifically geared towards black magic and simply the left hand path and all of that, the Sitra Ara, you name it. And it came to a climax when moderators of the group kicked me out because they kicked me out because they either kicked me out or I removed myself from the group because I just couldn't stand dealing with their worthless, hypocritical asses anymore. It's also one of the reasons that I don't really like what the Golden Dawn has become. But again, that's a discussion for another time. Back then it was, let's see, 2013, 2014. This was 5 years ago. And I was 20, in my mid 20s, 27, 26, 28. I was closing in on 30. And yeah, it was just the same misery, misery, misery. Okay. All I did was stay at home. I rarely went outside my one bedroom apartment. I just stayed in house. I was very withdrawn because of all the fucking shit I had to deal with, all the issues, all of that stuff. I was very withdrawn. I was closed off. You name it. And I didn't socialize with anyone because I knew that socializing with people would lead to pain and misery because of all the black magic and the negative energy and all of that. And again, all the while, of course, I had my family high on my heels, stalking me magically as well as otherwise. I distinctly remember, for example, once at 4 a.m. in the morning when I heard the loud knock on my door, like boom, and in my half sleep drunken state, I could see that my mother had sent some kind of astral spy my way to see what it is exactly that I'm doing. So yeah, that shows you how that my mother's family and my mother were, relatively speaking, well adept, astrally speaking or magically speaking. They knew their stuff because I could actually see that spy, and that's where the story of the occult begins for me. Around that time, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I experimented with a couple of things, and at certain moments, again, I felt like the same thing. Everything felt bleak and lifeless to me. I was still knee deep in shit, magically speaking. And there were times when I said to myself, when I literally just thought that I wasn't suicidal, but I thought to myself, life doesn't seem worth living. Life seems useless at this point. I just don't feel like being alive. Everything seems so fucking worthless and useless, and nothing seems appealing anymore. You know, that's my point. That's the stage I was at. And I was also pestered by annoying neighbors. My neighbors weren't exactly normal people. You had Brazilian whores on the one side, on the other side, you had worthless preschoolers. You had a bunch of annoying fucking people surrounding me. That's, again, that lived in the same one bedroom apartment because they wanted to get acquainted with me, but I'd have none of it. So I didn't want them near me. And I, with my own eyes, without saying it, I told them to fuck off. And they found me weird as a result because I was withdrawn. That's what the vermin is like here. The second you're not stereotypical vermin like them, the second you're different, they automatically chastise you for either being insane or being this or being that. Not that I care. And yeah, you can ask people. Okay, ask anyone, and they'll tell you, yeah, he was more withdrawn then. Mourinho was more withdrawn back then. He didn't socialize with people. He literally just kept to himself and stayed inside for the most part. Now, I only went outside to go to work and whatnot. Yeah, so in any case, after the whole Golden Dawn period, a while afterwards, I became an occultist. I was still focused strongly on solving my own life problems and my issues, and I still work with that basic spellcaster. And I became an astrologer first. So the first time I heard about astrology and I read upon it, I was immediately hooked. The concept fascinated of what astrology offers me, and just astrology as a whole just got me completely hooked. And I I immediately just turned myself into an astrologer. I homeschooled myself. I just went at it nonstop. Okay, and I just went at it nonstop, and I literally just homeschooled myself. And I became a competent astrologer, and I offered free readings online because I knew that I get a lot of workless parasites, and some of them agitated me immensely with their ungrateful attitude. And I told them it's already a fucking free reading, and you have the balls to actually make demands or think that you're entitled to make demands, you know. And in any case, the only reason I did stuff like that is because experience is the best teacher, and I needed people to practice on. But I did make that clear. I needed people to practice on, and it just kept going on and on and on. So yeah, I was an astrologer before I became an astrologer before becoming an occultist. And mhm. uh, I and at that time, let's just say I still worked as a security guard, but it was in the last year or so. It was 2015, if you will. And I was strongly focused on building an own astrological business. So I had a web shop built and everything. I had an online store made and everything. I I at that time I had stopped working at that security company, and I started working at a call center. I went to work for a Dutch call center company in Suriname, and I worked two jobs briefly for 2 or 3 months, just so I could finance opening up my web shop and whatnot online, and so that I could purchase a credit card. I worked at that security company as well as that call center, and people couldn't believe it because what I did, I worked 12 hours. I worked 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. at that security company, and I worked at that call center company from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, refrain from all the questions. You can ask questions, but I'll get to all of the questions later after I'm done. It's no use getting into it now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep getting distracted and I'll forget at which state of my life I was talking about, or which part of my life I was talking about. Um, One other thing to note too is that I was almost addicted to heavy metal back then. I, uh, I listened exclusively to heavy metal because it spoke to me. You know, heavy metal was about the same stuff. We're talking about really extreme stuff with the demonic voices and everything. All of that stuff appealed to me because I was in such a fucked up mental state of mind. Heavy metal just spoke to me, the whole pain and misery bit and all of that, especially occult metal. I mean, I still love heavy metal and occult black metal, but I just don't listen to it anymore because it's not appealing to me on an emotional level. Back then, the music represented and it emanated how I felt and what I felt inside, and now that's not the case anymore. So I just don't listen to that kind of music anymore. Um, so yeah, I became an astrologer first, and I worked at that call center for about 2 years. Call center's also a piece of shit. Call center's also a piece of crap, just like everything else. Again, every company is cheap labor, you name it. I made the same amount of money. I still struggle to get by financially, especially since the majority of my money went to the majority of the money that I made went to investing in my occult ventures and whatnot. Um, Around the same time that I was an astrologer, I also started focusing on the occult. And shortly summarized, I practice old school Golden Dawn magic. I work from a just one of those instructional workbooks, and I started practicing evocation. And I really, really put all of it in it. I imported a bunch of expensive stuff, things that you need, like a fire wand, a staff. I made all of these things. I practice heavily at home. I turned the bedroom of my, I mean, I turned the living room of my one bedroom apartment into an altar space, you name it. I had a triangle of the art and everything, the whole triangle of the art, the black and white one with the three holy names, Anafaxaton, Primimaton, and Tetragrammaton. I still remember all of it by memory, okay, literally, with the scrying mirror in the middle, the obsidian mirror. I just, like I said, a good deal of my money went into the occult to the point where I barely had any money left to feed myself. So I was stuck sometimes with a week without food, you name it, because I had to choose. And for me, I chose for the occult. And after practicing around that same time, practicing for 9 months, going through the entire book and everything. I made the mistake of attaching all of my I made the mistake of attaching everything, all of my my hope and everything to that, because I thought to myself, okay, this is it. Okay, I'm gonna summon my first spirit here, and all of life's problems will be solved, and I'll be finally able to breathe easy. And guess what? It didn't work. The first spirit that I tried to summon was Raphael, the Archangel Raphael, and it didn't work. Nothing. Yeah, I just went through the entire ritual, everything. I had everything memorized, blah 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 blah, and nothing worked. I tried evoking, nothing worked, and my heart just dropped. It just dropped. I almost had a nervous breakdown. If I did not keep myself in check, I was literally going to turn depressed, and I honestly might have hung myself in my bathroom. I don't know. And I got a valuable lesson back then. Never attach your hope to something. Otherwise, if it doesn't work out, you'll just be disappointed. Never, never do something like that. And that's why even to this day, I even to this day, I always assume the worst case scenario. I never dawdle from that. I never drift away from that. Always in any situation, when it comes to expectations, expect the worst thing. The first thing that you should do is ask yourself, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? And prepare yourself mentally for that worst thing actually happen. That way, if it actually happens, you won't be disappointed. And if something better happens, if things work out, even if they only work out halfway, you're still better off, and you'll still see it as a win. You won't be disappointed, and you'll be moderately, at the very least, moderately content or satisfied. That's what I'm getting at, and that's what I mean. So yeah, I tried everything. After that, while balancing astrology with the occult, I I just while balancing astrology with the occult, I just I just while balancing astrology with the occult, I just kept hitting on that door. I wanted to know what the reason was for me not being able to summon spirits successfully. I just kept at it, and I kept at it and at it and at it and at it. Okay, I tried everything. I tried several magical system, every magical system out there: Wicca, witchcraft, new avatar power, all of it. None of it worked out for me. Um, I tried everything, and nothing worked. Not kidding, nothing worked. Um, and I was just fed up, but I just kept persevering, and I never even stopped or wavered for a second. Even I just kept at it mercilessly, and I did not let go. And I tried everything. I consulted other spellcasters that let because I wanted to know. I had other spellcasters cast divinatory readings for me, just so I could know what the reason was for what happened, or what the problem was exactly, why I couldn't summon spirits successfully, why I couldn't evoke successfully. And it took a year and a half approximately, or a year even. After that didn't work out, I even undertook an entire project that I thought to myself, maybe traditional magic will work. And that's where the whole Ars Paulina Part 2, Ars Paulina Part 1 came into play, that traditional grimoire. I had the table of practice built and everything, okay? But even that didn't work. All of the effort was for nothing. I had an expensive round table built, everything. I had everything done and nothing worked. And again, you'd think that I get discouraged, but no, not for me. I literally swore on my life. I said to myself, I'm either going to learn how to summon spirits, or I'm going to die trying to do so, period. And I meant that literally. And it was when I started refining my astrological techniques. By then I had already mastered the basic occult exercises, everything, but it didn't mean anything. So I just closed off my temple area. I said to people, it's no use online. I said to people, no, it's no use online. Okay, it's no use closing off. It's no use just doing these stupid exercises, LBRP, the lesser banishing rituals, the middle pillars, and so on. If I can't summon spirit successfully, the only things that these things are doing for me is that they're cleansing me mentally, because these rituals did have a good effect on me, in the sense that they cleansed me from all the black magic and all the negative energy that was in my system, that was corrupting my astral body. I could feel myself being clean from the inside. I felt clean, and my quality of life, although only slightly or briefly, it still improved. Okay, I wasn't in the deep shit. I was in less deeper shit that I was in, that I was used to being in. Um, let's see. And for the rest, when I was refining my astrological techniques, I specifically when I finally obtained zodiacal degree meanings. So what each degree means, that a planet is in a zodiac sign. It's that I noticed that the sun was 6 degrees in Libra when I was born, specifically 6 degrees. And 6 degrees stands, it's a psychic aspect. It simply stands for, within an occult context, it means that I have energy that passes through me, instead of energy that just manifests in front of me. And I automatically translated it into an occult context or a magical context. And I said to myself, wait a minute. So that means that my specialty is invoking, and it's not evoking. And that's when it hit me. I thought to myself, okay, I think I've been going at this all wrong. That's why. Okay. And, and that's when I started invoking. That's when I started invoking first. And that's where my success story as an occultist began. I first started working. The very first spirit that I invoked was my beloved Lord Samael. He was the first one, and I wanted a patron. He is still my everything, of course. He's still my everything. I attach as much value now as I did back then, and I will always do so. I've even come to value him more, but I'm used to him, you know. It's like being married to someone. I'm just used to having him around, as well as my vice patron. But my Lord Samael is I, the very first one that I summoned successfully. And when I first started, I didn't see, of course, I didn't see anyone, but I did feel him. Okay, and I was intimidated. Okay, because all hell broke loose during the first ritual. It was like there was a thunderstorm inside my entire apartment. The walls started the ceiling started shaking violently. You name it. And yeah, he actually, that's where my success story begins, because he actually delivered results. I could actually feel protected. I could feel that layer of aura and energy uh, around me. I could feel everything. Um, I couldn't see him in the beginning first, but I could sense him. I felt him all around me during ritual, and I was like, okay, I could feel him. I could sense him. I can sense him. And back then, he appeared a lot more violent because he was new to me. Basically, his energy was new to me. Now I'm used to him, of course, so he doesn't appear as violent, despite the fact that that's not the case. And yeah, he offered me. He gave me everything that I wanted. Pretty much, I became stronger. My quality of life improved. I started looking better. I started smiling more. I socialized with people. Life got better overall. Daily life got better, and it improved. Um, he dealt with every enemy that I had, you name it, from people that bullied me at school to otherwise. My mother, as a matter of fact, since she's my arch nemesis, she's the very first one that I took out, that he took out on my behalf, of course, and so on. Back then I was still struggling to get by, so I worked with another secondary spirit for money, and the first spirit I worked with for money was Clone. But I need to point out, in the beginning, I entrusted everything to Samael, and of course, I came to the harsh realization that he's not skilled at everything, and money also plays a part. He's not skilled at money. His specialty isn't money, obviously, and he freely admits that, of course. Um, and yeah, the mistake I made is that I didn't I didn't take I didn't how should I put this? The mistake I made is that I didn't tell him that I was going to work with another spirit for money, and that I was going to relieve him of that specific part of that specific task. And I angered him by working with Claw Neck in the beginning, and he punished me by, during the ritual, giving me one hell of a stomach ache. That stomach ache was so bad that I had to lie down, because I started to sweat from the intensity of the stomach pain, or those stomach cramps. Um, yeah. Um, I also remember the first time he spoke to me, the first time he talked to me, the very first time I heard his voice. Uh, is because I went to his altar. Back then, I just had to make do with the divinatory readings. I just cast divinatory readings if I wanted to know what his opinion was on something, because I couldn't see him or hear him, but I could sense him all around me. And the very first time he spoke to me, I still remember that even after all these years. I just went to his altar and I spoke to him and I told him, "Listen, I I'm unfortunately going to have to assign these tasks to someone else, because it's not working out for me, assigning this task to you, etc., blah 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 blah." And I told him, "I hope you don't have a problem with that." And then I first heard this voice, "I do," because I felt a cramp all of a sudden running from my legs all the way up to the rest of my body. I felt cramp, like something was holding me and keeping me in place. And he told me, "I do. You're taking work away from me. I want to gain as much experience as possible, and you're taking work away from me. So I do mind that you're doing this, or that you're doing so." And and yeah, and yeah, that's the case. That was the case. That's the very first time I heard him, and after a while, I could see him too. I remember the first time that I saw him. I'll never forget that first time that I saw him. Just a huge guy, 3, 4 meters tall, with blonde curly hair similar to mine, but shorter curls even, and very buff, muscular, like a guy weighing, for example, 120 kilograms or something similar. Very, very strong looking and macho looking and everything. Wearing a black robe. That's how. That's what he looks like in general. And that's how he appeared to me. And yeah, and that's where my success story began. That's also where my pretty much my website began. Back then, it was still a free website and whatnot because I wasn't well off financially. I Clonac was the first spirit I started working with. The first spirit I started working with to improve my financial life, and Clonac did well, of course, with the drawbacks in general that I mentioned in the article. Um, those that $200 that I was used to making, or $150 that I was used to making, turned into 200, then it turned into 300, then it turned into 600. I made good strides, okay. The most money that I ever made working a mundane job, because at that time I wasn't even at that call center anymore. I didn't work at that call center anymore. I I didn't work at that call center anymore. I work from home as a dating site moderator. I I worked on dating sites. Sorry. I worked on dating sites. And dating site moderator, for those of you that don't know, is just someone that passes himself off as a man or a woman. It borders on fraudulent activity, okay? Passes himself off as a man or a woman, or primarily a woman, since the majority of men visiting dating sites are men, just looking to get laid and whatnot. And you just need to pretend to be a woman and with a fake profile and everything, and you're supposed to seduce guys into spending as much money as possible by messaging you as much as possible. General things like making a physical appointment or a date are big red flags and big no's. If you make the mistake of making an appointment or scheduling a date with a guy, then yeah, you'll either get suspended or fired by the company that you work for. That's what I did. The benefits for me were that this job, if I work from home, I didn't have to deal with any no annoying employers. I literally didn't have to commute. It doesn't matter. So no bad weather, nothing. I just work from home and I work less hours. The work was intense, especially since Clone made it intense to the point where I felt like I had drank 10 energy drinks, 10 Red Bulls, and I just went nuts, literally just typing like my fingers were gonna fall off. I was able to get the workload done of 5 or 6 people. That's also why I made that much money. That's the most money I made. 600 euros is the most money I made. That's like 650 to $700. That's the most money I made working a mundane job. And yeah, again, that's where my success story begins. Okay, after that, I stopped. That was 2016, approximately 2017. I got stranded after a year or so with Clonac. I I regressed back to making $200 a month. Not even $200. Let's just say $200 on average. Just enough money to feed myself and to pay rent. That's it. And after careful deliberation, I started working with Sandalphon. And back then, my beloved Samael also helped me with a bunch of things. He called these spirits for me, all in a line, and told me, listen, you can work with him too. You can work with him, Sandalphon. Tell him what you can do for him, and so on. I worked with, I started working with Sandalphon, and things went better. He was the one that directed me towards opening up to offering my services as a magician for customers. And and yeah, that's where it all started. I started offering my services online to customers. My very first prices were what? $25, $50, and $75. And we slowly started building from there. But Sandalphon works quick, relatively quick, something that I had not anticipated or expected. And yeah, I I made a good deal of money. Okay, I made enough money in any case. I made maybe like 1,000. After 3 months, I made $1,000 a month or so. I was living on Easy Street because it was a lot here. Okay, I could easily pay my rent off, all the debts that I had, everything. I just went. Things went great. Things were just amazing. And after close to a year, I my basic income was $1,800 a month. And $1,800 here is a lot. Like I told you, I made at that rate, I made 9 times what the average person makes here, approximately 8 to 9 times. So I could easily afford everything, and I improved my quality of life about all that. I'm not greedy. It's not about money. It's about my quality of life. It's not about money. It's about abundance. So I could easily, afford all the expensive shit that I have now, even up until this day. And I moved for the first time into my own house, that house that I lived in last year, where the majority of my videos are recorded. My most popular videos, specifically, example, the Lucifer video, um, with the three swords in the background, my Lord Samael's altar. And that's when I offered my services as a magician for hire. That's where the bulk of my experience, magical experience, began. I started working with different spirits on behalf of customers. I started doing this and started doing that. So yeah, things went well. No complaints. I accomplished all of the goals that I set out to do, more or less. And of course, working with Sandalphon did not come without its drawbacks. Not that that's due to him or anything else. I just had problems in terms of magical disruption and all of those things, and I had to start from scratch. And I don't even need to point out what kind of nightmare it is, or how annoying it is, or not even annoying, just how depressing it is to literally go bankrupt, because it happened to me a good deal of times, 2 or 3 times, that I went from everything to nothing. Everything just crashed in, that just imploded. Everything just collapsed inwards. Everything just crashed inwards, and I was forced to start all over again. Um, but each time I came back with a vengeance, and I made a lot more money. I think the most money that I ever made last year was the most money that I made in for a single order of customer's order was $20,000. Yeah, and on average, on a monthly basis, the most money I made was $8,000, $9,000. So you can imagine. Yeah, and yeah, I'm someone, I do like to live it up. Okay, I'm not going to. I definitely didn't work all that. I definitely didn't work that hard for nothing. And yeah, I basically went everywhere that you can go to, at least locally. I have access to more or less every luxury available. So yeah, the past year or the past 2 years for me have been, the past year and a half for me have been like going on vacation or being on vacation nonstop. That's what other people have told me. For me, it's nothing but 4-star restaurants or swimming pools and all of that, just eating out, you name it, blah 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 blah. Just just living the high quality lifestyle, just living high, period. And yeah, here I am. Um, and for the rest, my general plans for now, I've already divulged those plans for now. That people have asked me what I want to do in the near future. All of those things I was supposed to leave last year. I was supposed to leave work less than nothing shithole Suriname, but I'm unfortunately still here due to flight complications, excessive flight complications, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, those are my plans, and I've already discussed everything else on my website. In my career as a magician, roughly estimated 3-year career as a magician, could be a bit longer, give or take a year. It is within those 3 to 4 years that I've refined my skills to such a significantly devastating degree. And I've grown along the way, and I've made myself better, and I've literally just advanced in every way imaginable, and I've grown better and stronger in every way imaginable. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much my entire life story, and it hints at what I stated. It hints at what I've said in the past. Um, I'm sorry, in the past. It hints at what I've said in the beginning of this live stream, or at the beginning of this live stream, that people, generally speaking, have an interest in the occult. Their lives are pain and misery, more or less. These aren't successful people. These are people from the lowest classes of society. These aren't, these aren't people that you admire. These are parasites. These are vermin. You name it. These are people that are the exact opposite of what the average person seeks to become or seeks to be in his or her lifetime. And there are several reasons for that. With me, it was even worse than the average occultist or person having an interest in the occult. But the reason for that, I've outlined that in detail. Okay, but shortly summarized, it's simply it was long story short, occult forces that were behind all of my trials and tribulations and agony and all of the negativity. Um, and ironically now, it is occultism in itself that has elevated me and has made me ascend and has made me to become divine. So yeah, and I think in case I haven't said it, I'm going to say it now. It is even present, astrologically speaking, in my own birth chart. My own natal chart gives that away. My own natal chart states that I will face many trials and tribulations and adversities in the beginning part of my life, but that in later years I will reap the benefits from all of those experiences, and tremendously so. So bluntly put, first part of my life is complete shit, and I will reap the rewards from all of the things that I've learned from going through all of that shit in later years. So the first part of my life is shit, and the rest of my life, the majority of my life, will be sitting pretty, relatively speaking, or will be a breeze, more or less. Okay, and that's it. Okay, if anyone wants to ask any questions, go ahead. I'm done. I'm not done with this live stream. I mean, I'm done talking. It's 100. We're going on 2 hours almost for this live stream, so no issues. So again, if anyone wants to ask questions, then ask questions now. I'm going to go through all the questions now. The container and the content says, "Damn, I don't want a Hindu mom, brutal." That's funny. Um, Someone called Rias Astral, I've never seen him before, has said or was asking me, do you know how some magicians predict future events on TV shows? No, not really. These are unnecessarily magicians. These are just clairvoyants or people that have been given the gift of foresight, if you will. All the other questions I've already answered. Victor G says, you look like you were driving goods for the cartel outside of country lines, but I kid, of course. You have a better hairstyle these days, occult experiences. David B says, you look like someone I'd see on the news that caused a terrorist attack, not to be rude or anything. Yeah, exactly. My point exactly. Uh, Victor G, I've already answered your questions, Victor G. The container and content says so brutal. I had shitty childhood mostly too. Maybe you're right. People drawn to the occult have rough childhoods. That goes without saying. Jason Dunn says, no wonder you cut ties with them in the end. Yeah, obviously. Again, that's why I tell people these people are not my family. Okay, quote unquote family. They're not my family. Uh, Occult experience says you look younger today than you were in the picture. Yes. People say that too. People can't believe that I'm 33. People think that I'm 20, 25 or something. Jason Dunn retracted his message. I have no idea why. But hey, to each his own. Rafael Ferreira is laughing. LMAO. K Park Dog says you're looking good. Marino. Victor G says tough stuff, man. I'd imagine all of those stories. made you even more dedicated to the alternative lifestyle. After all that, how do you deal with the levels of misanthropy inside you? Do you still deal with it mentally, or are you a lot more in peace with people in your new situation now? All the levels of misanthropy, no, I've already dealt with it. No. For those of you that don't know what misanthropy means, a misanthrope is someone that hates mankind. I am still a misanthrope, okay, but not because I am resent towards mankind for all the shit that I've been through. I've never ever allowed myself to become biased, okay? That's why when I call Suriname a shithole, it's because it is a shithole. It's easy for people to say, especially local people that don't like what I'm saying, to say that, hey, you know, based on his entire personal life, it shouldn't be a wonder that he hates it here. He's completely bitter, he's this, he's that. No, my personal life and facts are two different things. My life might have been shit here, but that does not mean that that is the reason for here being shit. Here is shit because here is shit. Period. Okay. I mean, if I lived in the U.S., I would not say the U.S. is crap. No, I might have had a tough life in the US. Even if I were born in the US, I'd say, hey, my life is shit. But that does not mean that the US is shit. Facts are facts. The US is still one of the best countries to live in. So that's my point. Uh, so yeah, in any case, that's what a misanthrope means. And I'm still a misanthrope. I still despise mankind to the point where I think that honestly, mankind does not deserve to exist, but not out of spite or out of resentment based on personal experiences. No, from a neutral theoretical perspective. I mean, look at mankind. Seriously, look at the shit that people do. Mankind calls itself God's greatest creation, but is ironically also God's worst creation, if you will. So yeah, again, the knife cuts both ways, and it's simply staring at two sides of the same coin. Okay, mankind has done a lot of good, but also done a lot of bad, and let's just say I'm not a big fan of mankind. I don't like people by principle. I just don't like people by principle, based on principle. In any case, Victor G, relating to your question, I don't deal with it anymore mentally. Right now, I'm at peace with myself completely. And you can tell, I mean, you can see that looking at me. I'm at peace completely. I'm calm, I'm cool, I'm collective. Back then, I was lost, you know, as in I had no life direction. I was just drifting aimlessly and just struggling to survive. That's all. And you can tell that based on my picture. Someone told me that, someone local told me that your picture on your ID card, it your picture on your ID card, you look lost in that picture. You look like you have no idea where you're going in life and like you're struggling. That's all. You look lost, period. And whereas now I am focused, I have direction, excessive direction. Okay, not that I mind. You can never have too much direction or be too directed. I know where I'm going in my life. I know what I want to do. I know who I am. I know where I want to be compared to where I am now, and so on. The only negativity that I have to deal with is the immense toll that my work takes on me, my magical work. The toll that it takes on me is tremendous. Okay, I don't want to toot my own horn or come off as arrogant, but without saying, I'm literally one of the best magicians out there. At the very least, one of the best magicians out there. And I none of that comes without its drawbacks from a career perspective, because other magicians have also asked me, or some other people have also asked me, how it's possible that I can work with so many spirits when just one of them is so complex and it's so difficult to work with. Yeah, for me, again, I can handle the heavy workload, the immense heavy workload. I'm bench pressing 200 to 300 kilograms, magically speaking, but I'm capable of benching that weight. The only drawback is that I feel a heavy load on my shoulders almost always. It's like I have two bags. I have two bags on both shoulders. Again, not that I mind. For me, my motto has always been no pain, no gain. I always push myself well past boundaries, any boundary that is known to man. I don't care how far I need to go or what I need to do. I'll be all the better and stronger for it. And yeah, that's also been the case with me mentally, or the case with me spiritually and astrally specifically. So those are the only drawbacks that I endure or encounter. I just I I feel the workload on me. It weighs heavy on me astrally in the form of pressure that I can feel in my shoulders, pressure on my astral body due to the immense amount of energy that I have flowing through me from all the spirits that I work with towards a customer's goal. Again, not that I mind. For me, it's been this way for years. I'm completely used to it. It's part of who I am. Sometimes I get hit with waves of neurosis or rage. Thoughts from the past bombard my mind. Something that happened to me 15 years ago will all of a sudden pop into my head. My work also causes me to have slight mood swings, fussy, erratic. I can come off as fussy or being annoyed and erratic every now and then. I can just feel slightly annoyed or agitated at times for no plausible reason. But again, all of these things are only noticeable primarily if you were to. I sometimes mumble inside myself, my mind just wants to say things out loud, and even if I'm with people, but I restrain it from doing so, and I end up just mumbling inside myself. Um, yeah, those are side effects, but you'll hardly notice it. You'll only notice it if you really know me, if you've known me for a good while, and if you live with me, for example, if you were to live with me, we were to share the same living quarters and so on. Then only then would you notice it. Okay, a customer of mine that had known me for a couple of months had pointed out, maybe half a year or so. She pointed out that, yeah, I've noticed that you. I just told her once when I was annoyed. She told me, you sound annoyed. I know you're not pissed, but you do sound pissed. I said, no, it's just a side effect of my work. And she said, yeah, I've noticed that you you get agitated every now and then, or you get annoyed for no explainable reason, for no reason whatsoever. So yeah, so that's to answer your question delicately and detailedly as possible, Victor G. Um, David B says, retrospectively, would you agree that all those things were meant to happen, that suffering, etc., or when you looked at your chart, did you say that all of it makes sense now? Both. All of it is meant to happen in a general universal context. Again, hinting at the whole free will discussion. We have no free will. Your entire life is already dictated by higher up, okay? In my case, God simply said, okay, you're gonna be born here, occultist, Mr. Occultist. The first part of your life in this lifetime is going to be shit. You're gonna go through a bunch of crap and struggle like no other, and the rest of your life will be a breeze. That's the simplest way I can put it. Everything is destined to happen, okay? Everything happens for a reason. That my chart simply displays what has been decided or what was decided. Um, Jason Dunn says, I'm glad you shared this with us. Very inspirational. It shows that against all odds, we can make it. Yes, we can. Oh, Big Fat Foot says, I wonder if you have read up on the history of the Sumerians and what they did. Care to elaborate on that? I'm familiar with the Sumerians, but what do you mean exactly? What are you trying to insinuate? So yeah, David B says, I think your mother wanted you to be born as a girl. No, that's not it. That's not it, David B. I can see where you make that connection, but that piece of shit that's supposed to be my mother, she uh-uh. She just she's just uh, a witch, an Indian witch with severe dominancy issues, excessive dominancy issues. But she herself comes from a broken home, so yeah, you can imagine. Okay, her mother was also, again, it's like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So her mother was also just like her, and I don't know. In my youth, I not that it interested me, but I received stories every now and then, or I heard someone saying that my mother told her stories too about how her mother mistreated her and her sisters immensely, treating them like they were slaves. They had waiter or waitress on her, bringing her food and all of that crap. And yeah, I've been to my grandmother's house, so my mother's house. Okay, believe me, it's supposed to be a house. It reminds you of one of those shacks that they have in Africa that people live in. A shack, an actual shack. Believe me, I want nothing. When I say nothing, I want nothing to do with them whatsoever. I don't want work. I don't want worthless vermin near me. I like people. Thank you. Big Fat Foot says, I mean who they are, where they came from, and the creation of human beings. Yes, yes, Big Fat Foot. I'm familiar with everything, okay? I'm familiar with Sumer. I've read up on on Sumerians. I have covered a couple of Sumerian theories on my YouTube channel, so I'm familiar with it. I know I'm familiar with the Anunnaki, the Sumerian myth of creation, and it was taken over by Babylonians, I think. I know what the Anunnaki is. I know who they were, what they did, blah 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 blah. Yeah. So yeah, again, my question is, what are you insinuating? What exactly do you want to ask me? Is there anything you want to ask me, or was this just a general inquiry on whether I'm familiar with Sumer? Jason Dunn says, you've got me thinking about my own family, mainly women enjoying trying to be in control. The men in my family seem to have run far away. Yeah, listen, you have women like that. This is the case globally, so not just locally, okay? There are women in this world that have some kind of dominatrix, dominancy complex. They seem to have some, and I think in their inadequacy, they seem to have some kind of, in their inadequacy, they seem to have some kind of I don't know if it's some kind of some kind of inferiority complex they have or something. But in any case, they have issues. Okay, they severely have issues to the point where they feel like they need to dominate a man or they need to be dominating towards others in order to to compensate for their own shortcomings, if you will. Jason Dunn says, now I won't even be around my grandma as she switched on me, had to cut her off. Yeah, that's normal. Again, that's why I said, you should never be doubtful of doing something like that. Never doubt cutting people and things out of your life. Otherwise, what's going to happen? You're going to spend up leading the rest of your life or living the rest of your life in pain and misery. I did a video on this. You should be able to cut ties or sever ties and to do away with anything that comes across you, anything that prevents you from growing as an individual. Simple example, let's just say I had a wife and children. I had a wife and two children, and all of a sudden I made the it's the same example that I think I give in the video. All of a sudden I made the decision to move to Germany. I just say to myself, hey, I have a dream of going to Germany. I want to start a new life there and everything. And of course, I won't be able to take my family with me because they simply don't fit within the scope of what it is that I have planned there. I intend on going to Germany to live as a monk or whatever, to join a monastery, blah, blah, blah. And how would any rational person go about it? And in my case, as a rational individual, I'd simply sit my family down and I tell them, listen, I'm going to leave you guys. I'm not kidding. I want to move to Germany. I really want this, and so on and so forth. You name it. Okay. And what do you think is going to happen? Your family as well as their relatives will condemn you. You'll hear all kinds of things, also all kinds of slurs being thrown at you from you're insane. He's lost his mind completely. He wants to abandon, for example, he wants to abandon Emma and the children just to go live in Germany to join some fucking monastery. People will throw stuff like that at you, but you need to remain steadfast in your decision. You need to do against all other things that work against you. You need to do and to keep in mind what is best for me. You need to do what's best for you, period. It doesn't matter whom else comes into the equation or whatnot, even if it means abandoning your own children. If you've got, at least explain it to them rationally. If they won't listen, then that's their problem. Then they're the ones in the wrong. I mean, if you're, I mean, your wife, honestly, if I had my wife in the example that I gave, might even yell at me, "You're fucking insane. How dare you leave me and the children?" Blah, blah, blah. She might cry. She might do everything. You need to be a stone cold badass when it comes to stuff like that. And I can be like that. I have a poker face. Boom. I'm leaving you and the children, period. This isn't a request. I mean, you can cry, you can scream, you can start throwing with shit, you can act like a wild animal. I don't give a fuck. You can do whatever you want to. I'm going through with my plans, period. Okay? Official divorce, everything, all assets are shared 50-50, blah, 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 etc., etc. I'm going to fucking Germany. End of story. You need to be that steadfast. Regardless of what happens in life, you should always ask yourself, what is best for you? You need to put yourself first. It doesn't matter how bizarre your idea sounds to others, but the mistake that a lot of people make is that they constantly make compromises just to appease others. I'm not saying that you should be a selfish asshole, that you should just think about yourself, but you're you're allowed, and it's even healthy to compromise for others as long as it is worth it for you. I mean, even having a family is compromising. If I were to have a family right now, I were to have a wife and children, I'd have to give up a good deal of my freedom. No longer could I just say, "Hey, I'm going to go abroad. I'm going to stay in Belgium for 2 weeks. I'm going to go on vacation here and there and everywhere. I'm going to go outside the city." No, you have certain things, duties that you need to fulfill, family-based duties. You have obligations that you need to meet. You need to look after your children. You need to pick them up from school. You need to help your wife afterwards with this and with that and blah 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 blah. Just the mundane stuff that families go through. There's nothing wrong with that as long as the joy that your family, okay, the joy that your family brings you, um, succeeds, or the joy that your family brings you supersedes or is better, is greater than the negativity that these obligations bring along with them. What I'm saying is that your family needs to be more of a pro, instead of, as opposed to the cons that the obligations relating to them bring along with them. So the benefits need to outweigh the drawbacks. It's a simple equation in every decision you make. Do the benefits outweigh the drawbacks? That's all you need to think about. Do the benefits outweigh the drawbacks? The benefits are what? A 10. Drawbacks are a 5. Yes, the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. It's like having children. Having children is no easy task. Anyone knows that. Okay? From the moment you bring that child home from the maternity ward in the hospital, the wham, 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 waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning just to give the baby his bottle or her bottle, seeing to it that that child grows up, okay, paying for all the expenses that come along with having a child, dealing with all kinds of issues that this child might have and bring along with him or her. All of this, okay, is worth it as long as it is worth it for you. As long as the joy and the benefits that that child give you, the joy of having a child, having a son or a daughter, whatever, as long as that as a whole, as a benefit, outweighs the drawbacks. But I'll be damned if I make a decision just for someone else and I don't benefit from it. No, 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 no. That is illogical, period. That's illogical. So I'm definitely not going to have a family. I'm not going to play happy family all of a sudden by taking a wife, adopting a wife, just looking for a girlfriend, knocking her up, and then playing happy family here when I when it's just not worth it for me. That's why I have videos that I don't want to get married. I don't want to have children. I'm going to remain unmarried for the rest of my life. I'm going to remain alone for the rest of my life. For me, being alone is the best thing. There's no thing better than being alone. I simply attach too much value to my freedom. The freedom of literally not having to not having to talk to someone else and to basically ask someone permission. The freedom to not be submissive to someone in the sense of having to compromise just to meet that person's needs or to take that person's needs into consideration. I can do what I want, where I want, how I want, in what way I want, when I want. I can go as I please. I don't have to say, if I want to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and I want to say, "Hey, you know what?
I'm going to go outside the city. I I am going to stay outside the city in a hotel 50 kilometers outside the city, just like that. I don't have to ask anyone's permission. I don't have to, I have no girlfriend or wife that I need to adhere to in terms of discussing it with her. So to make as to make a mutual decision. I don't have to do any of that. And that's what I love so much. Okay. Again, I attach too much value to my own personal freedom. The freedom to literally do as I please. If I want to walk around naked in my fucking house, I can walk around naked, period. No one has to say, no one can tell me a goddamn thing because it's my fucking house. I pay for it and everything. I wouldn't be able to do that if I had a family. And again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. If you're willing to there's nothing wrong with being willing to compromise and to sacrifice a certain portion of your life or a certain portion of yourself. There's nothing wrong with self-sacrifice at such a level, as long as the benefits outweigh the drawbacks for me. Another simple example, another example. Okay, I had dogs. I don't have dogs anymore. But just a simple example. I love dogs. I had dogs. When I had these dogs, I had to take care of them. I had to feed them. I had to groom them. I had to take care of them. I had to clean up after them. I had to do all of these things. Why did I still get dogs? Someone that doesn't like dogs wouldn't even do any of that. Okay, because it's simply a matter of do the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. For me, for a while, it did. Okay, the joy that these dogs brought me, the joy of just playing with these dogs, being with these dogs, and just enjoying their company outweighed all the negativities, which were cleaning up after them, grooming them, looking after them, taking them to the veterinarian if they get sick, you name it, blah blah blah. That's the as long as the benefits outweigh the drawbacks in such a situation, the joy that they bring being a benefit and cleaning up after them and taking care of them being a drawback. The pros outweigh the cons. Okay, that's all. But of course, I don't have those dogs anymore. For those of you that are familiar with my dogs on my videos, I don't have those dogs anymore because the it got to a certain point where the cons ridiculously outweighed the pros, where these dogs became such a liability in the long term. It's not something short term. I'm not saying that you should bail on it the second things get hard, but again, it's not a phase or it's nothing temporary. It was something permanent. My dogs, I don't know. I think it's possible that my dogs were autistic, but they weren't right in the head or something. Honestly, first time in my life that I came across autistic dogs. These dogs literally just pissed and shat all over the place. They shat in my room. They shat everywhere I allowed them to even come for a couple of seconds. So I'll be damned if I'm gonna be stuck. I'm gonna force myself to be stuck with dogs that piss and shit all over the place. No, 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 no. Again, it's not a phase or anything. These were grown dogs. These weren't puppies that hey, it's just a phase, it'll go away. No, 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 no. These dogs on toilet train. No, 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 no. These dogs were adult dogs that know exactly what they were doing, and they just brought in the after a good while. They in the beginning they were worth the trouble, but after a while they were nothing but a liability. They were nothing but a liability. The drawbacks greatly outweighed the benefits. And I knew it was permanent. And I said to myself, no, the second I came to that realization, I got rid of them. End of story. See what I mean? Another simple example. Let's just say you have a son. Okay. Simple example. You have a son as a child, of course. And yes, the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. The son is worth all the trouble that he's causing. Your son is worth all the troubles. He's worth all the trouble because being with him and the joy that he brings you is worth it compared to all the drawbacks of taking care of him and of him just being himself. Okay. All of a sudden, your son falls into a deplorable state of attitude, of behavior. You walk into your son's room one day, your son is a teenager, no problem. He's a teenager, he's 15, 16 years old. Your son is a teenager, all of a sudden you walk in on his room and it turns out that he defecated on the room. He literally took a shit on his own bed. You're gonna ask him if his fucking head is not screwed on straight and what the hell's wrong with him. He ensues in a good deal of the derogatory behavior. We're talking about he steals your car The police brings him home. Here is your son, Mr. or Mrs. Thingy. He was seen driving a car and he crashed it into another person's car, wounding that person. Other person wants to file charges, blah blah blah. Your son steals money out of your own wallet silently when you're not looking. Your son pickpockets you as a parent. Your son keeps displaying that kind of behavior in the long term. We're talking about nothing changes. 2 to 3 years go by and his attitude hasn't changed one bit. You fight with your son, you guys have a huge argument. Your son yells at you, go fuck yourself, dad, you're a piece of shit. I I don't want to be your son anymore. What would you do? Are the benefits still worth the drawback? I mean, are the benefits still worth it? Do the benefits still outweigh the drawbacks? No. What would any rational person do? Any rational person would, like me, I would get rid of my son. I would disown him. Boom. You're no longer my son as of today. You're a piece of shit. I'm gonna disown you. I'm gonna throw you out on the street. You're a fucking problem. You're not my problem anymore. Blah 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 blah, etc. etc. Let me know if am I right or am I wrong. If this is just basic thinking. So yeah, that's what I mean in any case. Okay, I attach way too much value to my own personal freedom. I love myself way too much, and I'm definitely not going to compromise because for me, it's more of a liability. It's not the cons outweigh the pros. The bad outweighs the good. Having a family and whatnot and children. No, 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 no. That's definitely not the way I want to go. The direction I want to take my life in. Oh, let me see. All right, Victor G. You asked me whether I would do a personal conversation outside of live streaming and what my conditions would be. Um, no, I don't mind at all. Okay, but personal conversation as in a Skype chat, a video call, or something. I'm assuming you mean that, right? Face to face, virtually speaking, or digitally speaking. And if so, in relation to what? I can only tell you what the conditions are if you give me at least a short version of what kind of conversation. Is it relating an order you would like to place? Is it something business or is it strictly personal? You just want to talk to me personally. If it's personal, then I have no conditions. Yeah, sure, fine. You can we can it's all depends on you. We can do a video call via WhatsApp, you can call me via Skype, whatever you want to do. If it's business related, then also the same thing. You can call me, but keep it short. Just tell me what you want, and business wise, if it's an order you want to place, and I'll tell you what the general conditions are. That's it. Jason Dunn says that was one of my favorite videos, by the way. Yeah, no problem. The one relating to I forgot what it's called. Solve your own life, how to solve life's problems or something, life issues or something. Yeah, the one with the thumbnail of who wants to change, with everyone lifting their arms and with everyone just giving a shout out and lifting up their hands and saying afterwards who wants to change, and no one, everyone just bowing their heads in shame. But yeah, sort your matters out. Life advice in between brackets. Yeah. Um Victor G says, well, if you had your dreams about Germany, your wife should have been aware of that before having family or children. I'm referring to, let's just say, it being a spur of the moment decision, something that you came to, you just had an epiphany, something, God spoke to you, what the hell ever, okay? Just as an example. That's what I mean. Victor Jesus, when you've connected your life with other people, there's a level of responsibility that you take. Yeah, exactly. My point exactly. Jason Dunn says, I agree. We've been programmed to serve others at our own detriment, sad, but true. Self-love and respect is so important. Yes, my goals long-term are so much more important. Liberation is beautiful. Yeah. Last thing you've mentioned is key. If you make the family decision, you should have thought through all the things previously. No reason to hurt someone or leave them just because of your unresolved dreams. Yeah, I agree with that, but that's in the broad scope of things. Okay, I laid emphasis specifically on my decision, Victor G. Okay, Of course, I'm not saying that you should just abandon your children and all of that, just like that. But if you find yourself in, it's also something that doesn't happen too often. It's something that happens on a rare occasion. But let's just say you find yourself at such a stage in life where you found something that means more to you than anything else. Okay, it means more to you than your own family, than everything else that you can possibly think of or possibly imagine. It means more to you than you can possibly think of. Okay, to the point where it means more to you than your family and your environment and all of that. Would you just give up pursuing that which you desire so much just for the sake of appeasing your family? See, that's the mistake people make. They make a mistake of loving others more than they love themselves, and you should never do that. You should always put yourself first, and you should always strive towards your own self-being. Okay, about it's all about loving yourself and being there for yourself. Your own self-worth and your own well-being is important, all important, even above that of loved ones and etc. and whatnot. So yeah, this is just an example. And yeah, these people are just but some people, you have a good deal of people that just they just they just make do with the pain and misery that is their life, because they're too afraid to stand up for themselves and too afraid to do what is right for them, because they're afraid of how others might react, and they're afraid of how they're just afraid of how others might judge them and whatnot. They're so kept in line or kept in check. They're so whipped, if you will. Especially guys. You've got a good deal of guys out there that are so whipped by women to the point where they're nothing more than a donkey, and a woman is kind of like the farmer who forces the donkey to pull the weight. Uh-uh, uh-uh. But in any case, yeah, relating to what I was saying earlier, yeah, women, there are a good deal of women globally that have some kind of dominatrix complex. They feel, I don't know, they have issues, insecurity issues, and as a means, they just try to dominate men. Without trying to dominate men, they just try to dominate men because without any real reason for doing so, just to feel better about themselves. Yeah, but listen, women are nuts. We all know that. In other cases, it's just a personality trait, okay? Especially Aries women. In my mother's case, it was all destined, okay? You see what I'm talking about? Everything is destined, everything's connected. In my mother's case, it was destined because she's an Aries. Aries, one of the things that Aries deals with is dominance, okay? And yeah, she was an Aries. You could tell immediately, and I knew that she was an Aries. The sun wasn't, at the very least, the sun was an Aries when she was born. So yeah, that's it. The sun was in Aries when she was born. So she's by nature, okay, a dominant individual. She likes to dominate others, and she likes others to adhere to her wishes. And I was born the exact opposing sign, Libra. Libra stands for equality and peace and lovingness and equality for all. So you can imagine we were destined arch enemies. Our personalities are literally arch or enemies in themselves. They're completely opposing signs because Aries opposes Libra and vice versa. Libra stands for the exact opposite things that Aries stands for. Um, so yeah. Victor Jesus, yeah, that's unfortunately true. Without being a people hater, other people can give you the happiness that a universal connection, the occult, art, or whatever you love can give you. Sorry, those 200 symbols limit is making my post not very detailed. At the same time, I don't want to spam the chat. That's why I asked for the personal conversations. No, I don't mind. Okay, don't worry about spamming the chat. If there is some problem, then I'll definitely make you guys know it. I'll definitely tell you guys. Feel free to just type as much as possible. Okay, if your post is longer than 200 symbols or characters, then just post several things back to back, and I don't know, preferably add a 1, 2, 3 in the beginning. just numerize each post so that I know that it's one post as a whole that's just broken down into multiple posts. Again, the only, I don't mind a personal conversation. The only difference is that if you have a problem with other people seeing it or other people hearing it, then yeah, you really need to talk to me face to face. But if you don't mind, then I don't see the problem with just typing it in here. Just type it here, like I said, the way I said. Just type it, end of story. But type it, just type it the way I said, but type it with in parts and just break it down in bits and pieces as a whole in terms of what you want to say. What else was I going to say? Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's nothing really. Uh, Nothing really. In my case, like I said, I the sun was in Libra when I was born. Okay, but my Scorpio influence only just wins out, edges out on my Libra influence. When you, if you've known me for a while, you'll see it. And the side of me that I've developed is my Scorpio side, and Samael being my patron, of course, because I do cherish willpower and dominance and coerciveness. That's why I'm such a badass, even if I say so myself. I've turned myself into a badass via him, or he's turned me into a badass at my request, of course. I wanted to be just like him, and now I am. So yeah, my Scorpio influence, especially with magical influence added to it, edges out my Libra. But before magic and the occult, my Libra side was more. If you know me superficially, you'd see my Libra side more. Um, you'd see my Libra side more, and you'd only see my Scorpio side when it comes to certain things. When I want to accomplish a goal or something, whereas now I'll just openly tell you to fuck off. Honestly, Libra is one of the reasons I'm good looking because Libra deals with beauty, physical beauty, and beauty overall. That's why I'm so handsome and so good looking. Even if I say so myself. And yeah, generally speaking, good looking women aren't. I mean, Aries women aren't good looking. Women that have a strong Aries influence are not good looking. My mother, for one, was definitely not good looking. Okay, she's just as ugly as the average Sudanese person. But does anyone else have any other questions? Jason Dunn, Victor G, any one of you, just go ahead. Big Fat Foot, anyone has any questions? Today's Saturday. Things are quiet, just taking it easy. Victor G says, by the way, mentioning zodiac signs, why the Aries symbol on your videos? The Aries symbol is a reference to my Lord Samael, and it's a reference to him being first and foremost. No, it's okay. I haven't answered that previously. Yeah, I know what you mean. You mean the favicon, my YouTube favicon. Whenever you click on it, you'll see the subscribe button show up. Yeah, I deliberately added that Aries thingy there. Why do you think I also have this? That's why I have the Aries thingy too on my. I have Aries tattoo too on my arm. Fire is the energy that the occult energy that I lack the most, and that's why I built it. Okay, that's why I love fire so much. That's why I also feel drawn to seraphim. That's why I had a seraphim angel that I work with. I just love fire. Fire is the energy that I lack the most, and it's the fire that I love the most. I love all that it stands for: leadership capacity, dominance, willpower, um, the ability to get things done. You know, people that are fiery in nature are some of the best people you'll come across. Every nature has its charms. Okay, every element has its charms, but I just love fire, and I was born with a significant fire detriment. I was born honestly with the opposing qualities. Not that I don't cherish my Venusian side. I love the fact that I'm handsome and that I'm calm and cool and peaceful too. and that I'm generally speaking a good guy that does the right thing, and I do insist on equality for all. But at the same time, I definitely do. Honestly, I cherish more. I cherish willpower and devastation and just the power that the power of fire. I cherish that power a lot more. So hence me feeding that part. Otherwise, my patron would be Anael, for example, if I cherish my Libra side more. But no, there's a reason that Samael is my patron. I chose him for those reasons exactly because he appealed to me the most. The second I discovered Samael, I was like, oh, I immediately fell in love. I was like, okay, a spirit that literally is everything I want to be and more. Done. Uh, Jason Dunn says my questions are personal, so I'll contact you in person. Yeah, you know what to do. Okay, you have my contact method, so it's not a problem. So it's not a problem. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh crap! I need to drink something. My voice is starting to act up. I'm starting to strain myself by talking constantly. Hmm. Hmm. Jason Dunn is asking me, have you ever heard of Franz Bardon and initiation into Hermetics? Yes, I have. What are your thoughts, if any, on this system? It's a good system. Franz Bardon, I think he's the first one that came up with the concept of the way evocation is practiced within a Golden Dawn context. But the drawback is that it's heavily outdated. Franz Bardon's work is heavily outdated. Okay. Mm. So yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? Now I think I'm going to steer the stream into a more occult related direction. Hold up for a second. There is a book that I read too, but I don't know if I have that book anymore. Let me check. Um, in my collection, I have practically every occult book that you can imagine. Okay, I still have Golden Dawn's Book of the Black Serpent. I have Israel Regardis, The Complete Golden Dawn System of Magic. All right, I remember this book. This was the book that I was referring to. Society of Esoteric Endeavor, Conjuration, and an Excellent Discourse on the Nature and Substance of Devils and Spirits. I remember I never finished this book. I just read it halfway. Check to see. It's in 2 books, blah, 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 blah. And this book, I remember this book. This book is definitely book is a traditional book. I don't think a lot of you are familiar with this book, but this book is very medieval. To give you an example, this book discusses things like you need to go outside to perform a ritual. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to make a magic circle. It focuses more on the traditional Grimorium Verum style summoning with incantations and protecting yourself with symbols when summoning all kinds of scary shit creatures, summoning all kinds of demons and so on. Whereas they're the same spirits that I work with pretty much, but these spirits don't appear this way because I don't treat them like shit. Um, Jason Dunn says, I'm glad you mentioned this. For example, your e-course can provide this training in a much faster way. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. My e-course, like I said, when I wrote my own book, right, I was startled at how little information there was. And I thought to myself, is there really that much baggage? Holy crap. Hold on, let me go to my course directly. The occult course, I'm just going to give you an example. My book
is literally 2 pages. That's it. Literally 2 pages. And it dawned on me then, and I thought it dawned on me then how much baggage these books that I worked out of when I was a beginner, how much baggage they had. These books had so much baggage. I literally managed to go through an entire system of magic, or I managed to write up an entire system of high magic, Western ceremonial magic in only 2 pages. Whereas with the average book, how much was books like Modern Magic and Summoning Spirits were how long? 140 pages. So you're asking me if I've ever worked with any of the beings in a second book, Practice of Magical Evocation. Can you list an example? Can you name can you give me the name of one of these spirits? Um, beings in a second book. I don't know. I was never a big fan of Bardons because Bardons, when I briefly checked them out, back when I was still heavy into occult literature, I was armchair. I wasn't even a practicing magician. Um, I was never a big fan of Bardon because he said the same things that the others were saying, only in a more primitive context. But later I understood that that was because he was basically the trendsetter. He was one of the first, or the first person that came up with that modern way of summoning spirits instead of just doing things the traditional way, the grimoires outline. Oh, you're calling a spirit now, Nindhaya from the Mercury sphere, Nindhaya. I think I remember this spirit because it is also a spirit that's mentioned in Constantinus' Summoning Spirits, the art of magical evocation. But there it's just called Hiyaya, so not Hindhaya. So yeah, I know. I haven't worked with this spirit, okay? But I haven't worked with any of these spirits. But like I said, it's not really necessary. It's about quality, not quantity. I always used to be in as you can tell from my all of my videos, I used to be into the 20,000 spirits, having an entire collection of spirits, blah blah blah. But no, not anymore. Again, like I said, I've completely settled in, and it's all about quality, not quantity. It's not necessary to work with 20,000 spirits. Just pick one spirit that appeals to you the most, and just work with that spirit for the rest of your life. And the story. It's not necessary to work with 20,000 different energies. It's the only reason, as a matter of fact, the only reason I've covered that many spirits on my channel, hundreds of spirits, is just for the sake of documentation, honestly. That's why. And even I have worked with a lot of spirits, okay? I've worked with a lot of spirits. I think, let me see. Yeah, let me check my thing. Um, um, hold up for a second. Where did I put my, oh, yeah. I have worked with at least 50 spirits over the course of my career as a magician. At the very least 50 spirits. In reality, it's more. It could be close to 100, roughly estimated, or even 70, 75. Look at how many spirits, huh? Those are way too many spirits. But yeah, experience is the best teacher. Yeah. And this isn't including spirits that I've worked with for customers. There are spirits that I just summon once, or spirits that I just summoned, and the result of a ritual, I didn't get what I want, so it was a failure. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Aside from my patrons, the aside from my patrons, now that I mentioned my patrons, I remember too. I think I've mentioned that in the past before. Sandalphon, my beloved vice patron, Vice Lord Sandalphon, my second in command. I love him so much. Oh. When I first started working with him, he appeared differently. He didn't appear the way he does now. This is basically his true form. But back then, he appeared differently. It was kind of like a preliminary, hidden side. You know, a good deal of spirits have that. Okay, or a noticeable amount of spirits have that. They'll only divulge their real or show you their real forms the way they generally appear.
if they know that they can trust you and if you've earned their trust by working with them for a long time or for a good while. You already know my personal preference. Jason Dunn says there are two who I consider as possible patrons plus my HTA. Yeah, and you already know what the deal regarding that was. Okay, you already told me via WhatsApp, so it's not a problem. Okay, I'll hear from you in terms of what you want to do further. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. You simply need to ask yourself what you want out of life. I just didn't come to the decision when I adopted a patron. For me, it was either Samael or Michael. Michael, because Michael appealed to Michael's general power and prowess and the ability to literally increase my quality of life is what appealed to me. But like I said, I favor devastation and destruction and that kind of power more. I favor dominance and aggressiveness more, and improving my quality of life in that context. Okay, so yeah, so yeah, my choice was clear. I carefully deliberated, and I decided that Samuel was the best fit for me. And in terms of a second in command, Sandalphon is the best choice because he also meets all of the standards that I were to expect from a vice patron. Um, yeah, especially the financial aspect. Sandalphon is the reason that I'm so good at finances and that I'm so good at that I'm so shrewd in business, that I'm such a good businessman. Even if I say so myself, I can deal with matters easily, business wise. I can go around it, you name it. That was not the case before him. Jason Dunn says, I must say, I really do like Michael as well. Yeah, I know. Michael has solar attributes, okay, despite the fact that he rules Mercury traditionally. Michael, as a jack of all trades, it reminds you of the sun, okay. Um, so yeah, Jason Dunn, I'll hear from you in terms of what you want to do. As a matter of fact, I need to think about this, but it's okay. I trust you. I know you, so I know that you're trustworthy and so on. Regarding those two charts, right? I think I can help you out in advance. I'll let you know via WhatsApp. I think I can. I don't mind helping you out in advance. Now you're asking me, so if I have a solid bond with my HGA, would having a patron and vice patron work well? Yes, you can work with as many spirits as you want to, as long as you don't assign them the both, as long as you don't assign them the same title. You can have multiple patrons, and they'll all work in your favor because they're all dedicated to you. Your well-being is important to them. That's why Samuel and Samuel Fund work so well. They recognize that my well-being is all important, and that there is no them in my life without me, obviously. Um, so yeah, so Jason Dunn, yeah, it's not a problem. But like as I suggested, okay, it's about quality, not quantity. Just work with one spirit, okay. I'm not gonna lie. There's a good chance that if I didn't have Samael as a patron already at that time, that I might have considered my higher self as a permanent patron because we both have solar higher selves. And you've already read the article and watched the video on what a higher self is and how skilled and powerful they are. And yeah, I might have had my higher self as a patron. My point is that I'm trying to make is that the point that I'm trying to make is that you might want to just work with your higher self and focus on developing your bond with him um, primarily. I'm not saying that you should just leave everything to him. Okay, that might be a flaw because it might not be a good idea. That's the mistake I made in the beginning. You need to acknowledge and recognize what he's good at and which areas of his life I'm enriching. He's telling me that specifically he's enriching your financial life. He's making your financial life better. Emphasis is laid on money. And all other aspects of your life, he's improving that slowly but surely. But he says you're obviously more than welcome to work aside from him with anyone else that suits you. So yeah, it all depends on what you want. Okay, you need to tell me what you want in terms of goals, what you want to develop in your life. For example, if you want clairvoyance, then Raziel would be a good choice. You said Samael appeals to you, Michael appeals to you, or Metatron too. So it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. What do you want them to help you with? Oh, occult experience is asking me beginner's question earlier. You said you had a difficult time evoking spirits in physical form, yet you're able to describe what they look like. Can you see spirits when you invoke them? Obviously, yes. But these spirits appeal astrally, they don't appear physically. Okay, see you, Jason Dunn. I'm assuming you're not leaving, but even if you're leaving, fine. See you. You'll be in touch later today. Yeah, sure, no problem. Oh, okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Any other questions at all? And for those of you that are wondering, the whole deal with the devil thing, all of that is possible. All of that is possible, but you'll have to, let's just say if there's anyone out there that takes everything into account, what I said regarding a deal with the devil, that you don't have a problem being a spirit slave as a means of payment in the afterlife, just for short-lived glory and short-lived pleasure. Oh, good to see that you're still with us, Jason Dunn. Okay. Good to see that you're enjoying the live stream too. Yeah. Short-lived glory and all the good things that have to offer. Again, I'm not judging anyone. If you're seriously, of course, I condemn it and I don't approve of it, but that's from a personal perspective. But business-wise, if there's anyone out there that wants me, for example, to make a deal with the devil on their behalf, they want to become rich and powerful and blah, 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 whatever the hell they want. And they want that in return for, they know very well, they're familiar with the consequences, is that after they die, then they'll end up being that spirit slave in the afterlife and all of that. If they agree to all of that, sure, I can help you out, but it's going to be ridiculously expensive for obvious reasons. I mean, you'd be set for life. You'd literally be set for life. I think for something like that, I charge someone $15,000 to $20,000, 25 even. So $20,000 on average. Um, because you'd be set for life, literally be set for life. And in any case, demons do that. Generally speaking, infernal spirits do that. Not all infernal spirits do, but some of them do. Asiel being one of them. Satan too. Bilal says he'd rather not. Uh, so yeah, Satan and Asiel are two that are offering themselves. Asiel, I already knew that about Asiel because he did so a good while ago. Okay, a long time ago, I had a customer that wanted this. He wanted to sell his soul, if you will. And I spoke to him and I discussed everything in detail and I told him it's highly ill advised. But he just was of the opinion that, you know, he was still doing well and whatnot. He was of the opinion that he was still doing well and whatnot. That he'd still do well, at least for a while, that he were to be alive. And I told him, okay, suit yourself. But of course, he couldn't bring up the money, $20,000. I told him it's going to cost you $20,000. If I have to make such a permanent deal for you, yeah, it is possible, but it's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you a shitload of money. So yeah, for people that want to know, that is possible, but all of that is possible, but you need to ask yourself whether it is something that you want. And of course, I don't recommend it because it is the equivalent of it's the equivalent of it's the equivalent of taking out a loan at a loan shark. I'm not kidding. It's literally the equivalent of that. It's a bad deal from all sides, from all angles, from all perspectives. It's the same as lending money from a loan shark and then having to pay 2,000% interest rate. Um, if it's a loan for $10,000, then you'd have to literally pay 200 times. Uh, no, sorry, you'd have to pay 20 times as much, so 200,000. I mean, honestly, in what world does that sound like a comparable deal even? I mean, borrowing money from someone, $20,000 worth of money, only to pay back $200,000. Occult experience is asking me, is that how these demons get their spirit army from people who sold their soul, so to speak? They're telling me partially, yeah, partially. I didn't know that. Okay, good. So yeah. Mhm. And does anyone have any questions? I'm, for the time being, just for a brief moment, I have run out of things to talk about. Nothing crosses my mind anymore, or nothing comes to mind, to be honest. I'm just thinking right now. Occult experience is asking me, can you make a similar deal with an angel? Not in a million years. Like I said, angels are celestial beings, they're heavenly. So they don't engage in any kind of sin in any way, shape, or form. With Samael, it's not a it's not a black and white matter, of course, since Samael is both good and bad, because he needs to be. But no, he also disapproves of that. So no, angels don't do stuff like that. Uh, so yeah, and as for Jason Dunn, I'll get back to you via WhatsApp. Another interesting thing. Another interesting thing. Yesterday regarding the live stream. What's his name again? Um, Yesterday during the live stream, there was a David Bradshaw. Yeah, the guy that wanted to act aloof and he wanted to make a bunch of stupid jokes and so on. I banned him, and he sent me an email in the response that he had a bone to pick with me. He was trying to make me laugh. You're not gonna make me laugh by making stupid, worthless jokes, okay? Yeah, I got the message, Jason Dunn. I just hurt myself when I put my cell phone on vibrate as a means to not disturb me during live streaming. So yeah, I just banned him and he's pretty much done. I don't tolerate stuff like that on my website, on any of my thingies. I mean, he was just spamming. He was literally spamming the chat, the sidebar chat, the chat bar with his stupid messages. Uh, so again, does anyone have any other questions?
Um, Honestly, no, no, there's nothing that I'm not gonna lie. There's nothing that comes to mind. Okay, I'm all talked out, literally all spoken out. So yeah, if anyone has any question that they want to ask, then again, knock yourself out. Oh, right. As for Victor G, as for Victor G, if you still want to contact me personally, then you're free to do so. If you still intend on doing so. But yeah, you already know by which means you can contact me and whatnot. So yeah, there you go. Another interesting topic that comes to mind is the concept of using the occult for illegal gains. So we're thinking about fraud, committing crimes, and so on, because that's something interesting that no one has ever covered or no one covers in general. Yeah, thanks for all the support, Jason. I um, when it comes to fraudulent behavior, when it comes to just committing fraud or being a criminal and enlisting the help of a spirit, crime, uh, the only spirit that comes to mind that I can think of is um, is Satan. That's also the first thing that I noticed about Satan, because Satan is the only spirit that I've come across. There are others, obviously, but Satan is the only prominent one that I've come across that deals in stuff like this. And he says that yes, he does do all of those things, help people commit fraudulent acts and illegal acts and crimes and whatnot, but specifically more by seeing to it that they remain undetected and they remain hidden and that they're not caught by police. But karma will play into karma is Satan is also heavily karmic, works also in a heavy karmic way. So rest assured that if you ask for Satan's help in committing a crime, that it's gonna come back to bite you in the ass, as he states it, literally. Occult experience is asking me, theoretically speaking, Christians believe life begins at conception, not at birth. So does a fetus have a soul? What happens spiritually to aborted fetus or stillborn? Several things can happen. Okay, but the same thing happens as a person. And so yeah, it's true. What Christians say that life starts at conception. Yeah, that's true. Life starts at conception, not at birth. Life starts at conception, not at birth. Um, so yeah, even a child, even a fetus, already has a soul. And again, anything can happen. It all depends. The fetus can either, I mean, if it gets stillborn, then it can be reincarnated to another person. It's all what higher up decides. Um, it can simply turn into a drifter spirit. It already has an astral body and everything. Okay, the soul is untouchable. But when we say that, we're referring to a premature astral body, an innocent astral body, if you will. I once saw on a haunting episode where a family was haunted by a baby, or better said, the spirit of a deceased baby. This it was the child from a child that dated back to colonial times. The child was conceived between a plantation owner and a slave, and he had sex with that slave. Of course, he kept it quiet, and when she became pregnant, he just killed the child the second it became pregnant by holding its nose and just suffocating it to death, having it asphyxiate to death. And he had the woman killed too in order to cover up his dirty little secret. And as a result, the baby remained dormant. But when the family moved into the house and they started carrying out heavy renovation When they were busy renovating, they made heavy renovational arrangements. So we're talking about building things and removing things, destroying things. They disrupted and thereby basically awoke the astral body of that baby, and it started harming them by choking them and so on. They just felt someone choke them, hit them, and all sorts of crap. So yeah, all things can happen. But it's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Life does begin at conception and not at birth. And I simply never thought too much about it, but yeah, it's true. So yeah, any other questions? Anything else? Anything else? Someone is asking me on whether immortality can be achieved. Yes, I already answered that in the previous live stream, but yeah, that's okay. Immortality can be achieved, but it can be achieved, but it's impractical. Aside from the sheer amount of energy that it will take to keep your physical body and your astral body going, or your astral body and therefore your physical body in a permanent state of health and well-being. So no not becoming older is will take a ridiculous amount of energy, but it can be done realistically. But it's not worth it. Okay, believe me. You'll end up regretting your decision because you won't enjoy seeing everything and everyone else dying around you. Everyone and everything else around you dying, just simply the natural course of things, and you're the only one that stays that way. You're the only one that remains in the prime of your life. You'll soon come to see it as a curse and not as a you'll come to see it as a curse and not a benefit. Yeah, but all of these things are nice ideas, but nah, immortality is overrated. Immortality is really overrated. Mm. Occult experience is asking me, speaking of immortality, do vampires exist? Um, it has nothing to do with the occult, to be honest. But honestly, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know whether vampires exist or not. It's possible they existed at some point, but I don't think they ever did. It's just a myth. It's made up. I think it started with it's not it. I think it's just I think it's just a bedtime story that parents told their children. And I think it started in medieval times with Vlad Tepes, from Transylvania, the original Dracula.
I do love flat tapis, by the way. I do like flat tapis a lot. Flat Dracul. They call them Flat the Impaler. Just look him up if you don't know who he is. He's just, and you'll see the things he did, and as a result, you'll see why they call him the Impaler. You'll see why, especially people were terrified of him. Today's Saturday, so I'm assuming that the majority of people are home, right? I mean, people do work on Saturday, but not a lot. Saturday is more a half a day's work or something. Almost from my perspective, it almost doesn't even look like a Saturday. Today looks like your average business day. But yeah, it could just be me. Okay. Oops. Occult experiences. Thanks, Moreno. You've been most helpful. Yeah, sure, no problem. Oh yeah. Here in the US, people sleep in late on Saturday morning. Yeah, I understand. For me, it's different. Okay, I sleep whenever I want to sleep. If I feel like sleeping in late, I'll just sleep in late, regardless of the day. That's one of the benefits of me being who I am. No 9 to 5 job for me, so I don't have to worry about waking up early in the morning and all of that crap. No, 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 no. I can just do my thing and that's all. Oh, so yeah. Hmm. No, honestly, I have nothing else to say. I really have nothing else to say. I have no other subjects that I'd like to discuss or any other subject that comes to mind. So yeah, if anyone has any questions whatsoever, just shoot and we'll see. But yeah, I honestly have nothing, nada, zip. I do have another question though. Feel free to answer it. Uh, how I don't know how to formulate this, so I'm just gonna go ahead. Where do people get the stupidity from, or how can people be so stupid as to um, as to actually believe that a spellcaster that um, that offers things for $5, a spell for $5 is legit? I mean, seriously, how stupid do you need to be to actually think that? I can't wrap my head around it. I just can't. I'm trying to understand, but I can't be that stupid for the love of me. I literally cannot be that stupid. I just like to know where people get the stupidity from. So yeah, so just answer me, okay? Someone answer me. Where do they get the balls from to actually do something like that? I just I'm trying to understand, but it's hard. I once saw someone online offering to give you superpowers. The person's the person said, "I'll give you superpowers for $5." Literally, I'll give you superpowers for $5. Seriously, and it had a picture of someone lifting a car. How dense do you have to be?
to how dense do you have to be to actually think something like that? I just can't.
I just can't imagine for the love of me. I simply cannot imagine. Oh,
So yeah, that's it. In any case, I really have nothing else to say. Like I said, I'm just gonna close off now, and I'm gonna say goodbye to all. Goodbye to everyone. Until next time. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm signing off.